And so we'll get started with Rusty. We got everybody online now. So this special called session of court is now called to order, and we're going to talk first to building inspection workshop, budget workshop.
All right, so again, we're starting on page 7 of your long spreadsheet, and everybody should have a set of notes that the treasurer prepared for everybody. Do we have those available?
We do.
All right, so first and foremost, I listed, and I know it's probably a little much, but I keep adding to it, and if I have room, I didn't drop it off until I run out of room. From 2013, contractor's license collected, building inspections, building permits that were collected for Boyle County, outside of the city of Danville, and then building inspections within the city of Danville limits. And those are the 3 revenue sources for the building inspector's office at one point in time. Just for some historical information, the reason we separate those is because the county had their own building inspection license and the city of Danville had their own building inspection license. And when we went through this whole process of consolidating services, and that included occupational tax collection, property tax collection, we also did the same thing with building inspection, which eliminated a full office, software, equipment, and combined it into one service that the county administered. And so we, in lieu of that, we collected Danville's building inspections, building permits to offset those expenses. And so routinely, this office is never a break-even office, or never has been since I've been here. You know, there's always been a slight deficiency or liability to the county. But again, it just made better sense instead of the taxpayers paying for this service twice when it can be done by one office. So with that being said, I have 2013 to the 2021 budget in revenues. And I think the first thing that we noted here was the rate increases represented in your 2020 fiscal year. So you can see that your building permits increased almost double to help offset the expenses. One thing that I think we need to work on, and I don't know how we need to do this, and I've spoken with the judge about it, because again, if we're not collecting from everybody a contractor's license, we need to get rid of it. The contractor's licenses in 2019 were $12,005, an actual amount, and our projection, and again, this is a projection because I'm basing it off of March, and I've not seen a whole lot of contractors licenses come through since then. We're going to collect maybe $4,500. So I set your budget at $3,000 for the following year. So we're getting back to our 2013 contractors licenses. You know, the occupational tax office is collecting those names and turning those over to the building inspector. So I don't know what needs to be done to from that office.
Mary, Rusty and I have talked about it, and Rusty, go ahead.
I do have an idea what we may do, and it's what Bowling Green and some of the others do. And one of the ideas that I've got is, if we can get the word out, no permits to be issued until the applicant brings in proof that all their subs have licenses. That it's a little radical. It might be a little trouble at first, but if we can get into a mindset out in the county of that happening, that you've got to have your license before a permit can be issued, that kind of gets you on the other side of not chasing them down, but actually having them be proactive before they want their permit. If they know ahead of time that the people they want to hire need a current contractor's license, before a permit is issued, that would go a long way from having to chase them down afterward. I talked to Steve Hunter. He said that's how Bowling Green does. They do not issue any permits until the contractor or the general contractor or the applicant has everybody on their list and provides a proof of current contractor license. That's just something I wanted to throw out and see what you thought.
And also, Rusty, Mary, Rusty and I have talked about him sending out some notices right now to get caught up on some of our collections for those contractors' license until this new process can be incorporated into collection. Is that not true, Rusty?
Yeah, and the one thing I do worry about, I could send out 200 notices and we might only, you know, theoretically, we might only get 30 that say, okay, I'm going to buy my contractor's license. We don't really have a whole lot in place to ensure they do that unless we want to take them all to court. So that's why I'm thinking if we get ahead of it and say, I'm not giving you a permit until your subs have their licenses, that kind of puts everything in the forefront and we don't have to take corrective action.
Well, I like that concept and procedurally, but we also need to play a little catch up because we're behind the power curve right now.
Right. The only problem with that is no guarantee that they'll actually send in. And then what do we do then? You know, you send them out a notice, and some of them are just going to say, we're doing the work. We've already got it.
Most of them, when the occupational tax office did it, Rusty, no disrespect, they sent out a notice and they immediately got people to pay. That's how they collected that. They didn't do any aggressive chasing people around. You know, they just, you know, told them that they have failed to pay their contractor's license, and they have sent in checks without or dropped by to pay it. So you might get I don't know if you have a copy of their letter, but it was resourceful and actually worked. So
right.
I mean,
Yes,
you can see
I've
that
made up the letter also. Yes.
Yeah, but that's all they did was send out letters. And
would it be cheaper to do a postcard?
Not much. Nominally different. Postcards are like 50 cents and letters, stamps 55.
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I would put it on official letterhead by the fiscal court.
It gets more attention than a postcard that goes to the trash bin.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. What next, Barry?
So that'll solve our my revenue question. And then expenses, as you can see there, I did show you what our actual liability, but there was an anomaly in 19 and 20. Our projection shows that we'll be making up of some lost, we'll be making possibly an additional $14,000 over and above our expenses to go back to, you know, help pay for prior year's expenses or liability to the county. I think that's just wonderful. And that's what that increase has done for us. So in good years, we'll maybe have a little surplus to pay back what we've paid for and the taxpayers paid for in the past. And then going forward, hopefully we'll have some good years with the increased revenue. Outside of that, unless somebody has some questions about that, that's just for your consumption. Those figures, the salaries are still based off of a 3% increase. And new equipment in 1920 this year, we purchased some software to set up a database to help set up reminders and for contractors' licenses. And then the 2021 budget is for routine replacements. And unless the building inspector has something to say about his budget, that's all I have.
Hey, I have a question, Rusty, if I could, real quick. We talked a little bit earlier as we got on early, but what's your, can you update us on your activity level that's been happening, and then maybe a little bit on the activity level since like the beginning of March?
Sure. Last year, at the end of the year, I expected us to have an explosive year. It's still, I think we're still on par with how we did last year, which was a wonderful year. I think this quarantine and shutdowns have maybe altered it a little bit, but construction has gone on. The alteration might be where some people have had second thoughts or are hesitant to start building because of what's going on. But I have right at 60 permits issued, and we're not even at the half a year yet. So I'm very pleased, even with the circumstances.
That's good news.
Rusty, I have a question.
There's no telling what it'd be if we weren't in this situation.
Go ahead, John.
The new plan that you just talked about, to implement that, what would be the steps that the court has to make in order to implement that plan, that change? And I'll be honest, I don't see it radical at all. I think it's.
I don't think there would be any change, John. I don't think anything like that is spelled out in the ordinances on how we do it. It's just more of a procedural thing.
Well, my suggestion is we started ASAP, and I'm talking about 9:30 this morning.
And
I mean,
yeah, and I can also do the other to try to catch up. But if we could start this with your all's blessing, I think in a year or two time, that will be the norm. That's what everybody out there wanting to build will expect, and it'll be a much smoother down the road.
What is the enforcement, and what if somebody doesn't do it? We don't issue a permit. If we find, correct me if I'm wrong, if we find that we've issued a license and they haven't done the job, do we have the power to shut them down?
Yes, I can do a stop work. I'm working on a sheet right now that I'll give out to all these contractors, assuming we go with this. Failure to turn in a list would result in the holding of a certificate of occupancy or a stop work order from the building inspector. And both of those have legal power behind them.
I would entertain a motion, although this is a budget workshop, that we as a court approve this procedural change for building inspector to enact immediately.
I would make that motion, and if we need to wait till Thursday to make it official, I don't mind, but I would make the motion, if it's legal, is to start right today.
I'll second it.
I know of no reason procedurally why we can't make a motion to proceed with this recommended change. So is there any discussion on the motion that's been made? All those in favor signify by saying aye with your name.
Gay,
Aye, Cullen.
Chairman's aye.
Okay,
Ellis, aye.
okay. Is that everybody? Believe the motion passes. Aye for me. Motion passes. Press on, Rusty, and get that initiated ASAP, like today. Like,
I'll be working on it today, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you. All right.
Is all you need from me?
Believe so, Rusty. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. James, I see you there. You got up here pretty good shape. We got to work on your internet out there, don't we? Because it was pretty choppy, slow. Mary, we're looking at Animal Control Department now in their budget workshop.
So, Mr. James, if you want to turn on your microphone, can you do that? No, I think you have to click on,
Click
Your
on the screen.
Use the mouse. Yeah.
use your mouse and click on the microphone picture, the green microphone picture at the bottom.
There, Bill's got, right, there you go.
There you go.
Hi,
Now
James.
you can talk to
Oh,
us.
you turned it off again.
Cut it off. Hit that green, there you
There
go.
you go.
Now, how's that?
That's better.
Good. Thank you, James.
Hey, I
So,
figured it out.
James is on page 8, the next page of your spreadsheet, and it starts at toward the bottom with the 5205 account numbers. And everybody should have animal control notes.
Yes,
And the
ma'am.
first, I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's correct. We got it.
Okay, so on your notes, you can see from 13-14 fiscal year to your proposed budget of 2021, the total expenses that the county is paying for animal control. Okay. So it runs around it's slowly inching up. But that with all departments it goes without saying. We have first listed is the revenue, and the only revenue that offsets the fiscal court's expense toward animal control is the collection of dog licenses.
Yeah.
And you can see that it's a very minimal collection. And that's another one that I know that we do the best that we try to collect, but this is not a countywide collection of dogs. So that may be a conversation that we have at a later time, but this is all voluntary, and a lot of these dog licenses are very specific to adoption. So when an animal is adopted at the Humane Society themselves write the Boyle County Fiscal Court a check for the dog licenses that they issued with adoptive dogs, and they build that fee into the adoption fee. Does anybody have any questions about our expenses and our revenue?
Mary,
Total.
this might, Tom Ellis,
Yes.
this might be a crazy idea, but if we could nick $1 out of a license fee, could we get vets in town when somebody brings an animal in for their vaccinations and other work to help us to collect at the veterinary clinics?
Well, and this is where my experience of being around for a long time comes into play, Magistrate Ellis. At one point in time, we had the veterinarian offices collecting that money and giving out dog tags. And first and foremost, the internal control was somewhat hairy. You know, you had to issue a certain number of licenses with a certain number to each one of them. And then animal control had to go around and collect those and reconcile those. And with the staff at the veterinarian offices, who are very, very busy, and believe me, dog licenses are not their first and primary job duty. We ran into discrepancies, and the veterinarian offices, again, are so busy that it became a burden to them to help us do this. And so that's why we eliminated it and downsized it to the Humane Society and to specifically the County Judge Executive's office. So
Good explanation. I just was hoping we could save some or find some money and get it in the coffers.
yeah, and actually during that time, we were able to, excuse me, issue more licenses, and that was a fact. But you know, it's a difficult task for the veterinarian offices and for our staff. And actually it was the veterinarian offices that asked us to take it out of their you know, front offices for their receptionists to handle, because it just became an additional burden. Yeah. And I
Thank you.
understand that. Yes, sir. So going along with expenses, the salary line items, as you can see, there are 3 full-time and 4 part-time, with 2 of the part-time positions working 40 hours a pay period and 2 of the part-time positions working 20 hours a pay period. And that allows for more flexibility with those employees when the 40-hour become ill or have to stay home to take care of a family member for a short period of time, etc. But there's a 3% increase come January 1, 2021 for those who qualify for the increase. So I have the animal control warden salary broken out, the deputy warden salary broken out, and then the shelter janitorial salary, and the manager who is in the shelter and runs the shelter portion of animal control is broken out. Does anybody have any questions about any of that staffing? Okay, well then I'm going to move on to, we didn't make any changes in repair and maintenance in the vehicles. I need to make a change in the spay and neuter grant program, and I need direction from the fiscal court. We currently have a $2,500 grant that was not put in the budget at all this fiscal year. I've emailed the grant administrator out of the Department of Agriculture, and I've not gotten any responses from them because I don't know when we're going to receive the $2,500 that we have to match this fiscal year. And if I'm to guess, I'd say that this individual will come in June 1st, and we will be lucky to get a disbursement by June 30th. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of catch-up work, and these grants are not going to be like the cream and float to the top. So what I'd like to do in next year's budget is to increase the revenue by $2,500. Let's see, I keep changing my mind about this because I don't really know how to budget this one, because we're right on the cusp of a fiscal year. So right now I have to request to increase the 2021 budget revenue by $2,500. Because at that time, when I did these notes over a week ago, I thought for sure that we would get that $2,500 in. So that's what I want to do. I want to increase it by $2,500. And then that'll decrease and then I need to decrease the 1920 projection by $2,500 and carry that over to the 2021 for a total of $10,000 for 2 years of grant distribution. So what we do is we get $25,000 in for this fiscal year, and then I have a new grant already budgeted for next fiscal year of $2,500. And when I get that money in, I'm matching that with the fiscal court money of another $2,500. And I don't feel like I'm going to making those distributions until next fiscal year. So that's 2 $5,000 grants. Obviously, they won't be at the same time. One will be immediately, and the other one will be next after December of 2020 or January of 2021. It'll be after that. But unless you don't want to do a grant next year, that's something that you all have to consider because it's a $2,500 match.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to approve that those changes based on Mary's notes, as
Okay.
presented in Mary's notes.
I'll second it.
All right, a motion has been made to approve the presentation or the maintenance of the 2 grants. and it's been seconded. Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Ron,
Ronnie? Okay. Is there any discussion on what we have been presented? There being none, I'll vote, voice your vote with name, please.
Gay, yes.
Short, yes.
Ellis, yes.
Cullen, yes.
Salmons, yes.
John, are you
John, you
abstaining?
there?
John, are you abstaining?
Uh-oh.
I think he's off.
All right, Hunt, yes. The motion carries. Thank you for that. I think that's the right approach. Continue on, Miss Mary.
Yeah, and can we maybe get a call out to Magistrate K. Wood to let him know that he may not be online anymore? So the next thing that I have is basically kennel supplies. The next line down is kennel supplies. And you can see in my notes that we went over budget this year, and that specifically.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Excuse me, Mary.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Okay, my vote was yes on the last,
Okay.
on that
All right,
vote.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
So going back to the 403 line item, the dog food and kennel supplies, it's kind of a catch-all area for any operational expenses that come along with animal control. And this year we went over budget simply because we, and I feel like it's very minimal for the incident that animal control had to deal with, in addition to other volunteers and other agency support personnel, were the expenses of $3,170.34 for the abandoned horses out on 127. So that kind of explains why that is elevated there. We didn't change the fuel. We haven't changed the uniforms. We didn't change the insurance. The training is the same. The utilities remain the same, and the new equipment, we have in the budget, truck safety lighting of $600, a thermometer, or maybe there's more than one thermometer in that line item, and then routine replacements of $2,500. And I would be remiss to mention that, excuse me, animal control did receive a $1,500 grant from the CAECO Workers' Comp Safety allocation this year, and the fiscal court approved the moving forward with applying for those funds. And they were applied for by a staff person on behalf of the animal control program. And with that safety equipment, we are in the process of purchasing and have purchased $953.73 that we'll get reimbursed for. And they are for bite gloves, cat tongs, bite sticks, Freeman nets, snake tongs, and all of those items we did not have, except I think we had some old bite gloves that we were replacing with this purchase, but we didn't have any of these safety pieces of safety equipment to help staff deal with the animals or aggressive animals for their jobs.
Mary,
Hey,
Tom
Mary.
Ellis,
Okay.
what is the cost of the cartridge for the tranquilizer gun, and is it used frequently?
James, do you know the answer to that? I know.
That I do not know on the, for the cartridges. I can find out and I'll be more than happy to let y'all know. And no, we have used it twice, and that was on a real two aggressive dogs that we had in the shelter that we just couldn't get anything
to tranquilize it.
Yeah, we want to keep you guys safe, but I'm afraid that might be kind of expensive. But I'm not saying take it out by any means.
Yeah, well, I think we've had it almost a year now, and like I said, we've used it twice.
Thank you.
Hey, Mary and James, I have a question for you regarding the horse issue that we had. There was lots of things that were donated. I believe when I went out there, I saw some things that were donated by like Charter, some other things, and they told us just to keep it and use it maybe to try to auction off or whatever became of all that excess stuff that was at that farm.
I had no knowledge of anything.
Yeah, as far as I know, I'll check into it and make sure, but I think there was a lot of it that was kind of, like sold, and it has been put into a fund for, equine fund.
Okay.
I
All right.
think,
Can you get a confirmation on that? I don't know if that was done with
Yes, I
Jessica
sure
or John or who.
Jess and
So-
John kind of, run that for us out there because, they were great with that.
Yeah.
And I'll get in touch with them and find out exactly. I think actually it's set up. Barb Beanie, I think, set something up through the animal shelter, and
Oh.
it's in.
Oh.
So I
And it
would-
makes sense that it was donated for the horses and that it stay with them. And I just want to make sure that,
Yeah.
it's set up in some way that if we have something like this again, we can be better prepared for it. So,
Yes, from my understanding, that's what we've done. That's what it is. There's an account just set up just for that.
cool. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
So that's about all that we have, unless James wants to say anything, or if anybody has any questions for Mr. Good. That's my part of the budget.
James, thank
My-
Thank y'all.
all right, no other questions of James?
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank your staff for us.
All righty.
Everybody out there, but Jacob and Christina.
I sure will.
All right, next on our calendar is Constitution Square Park Budget Workshop.
So Constitution Square is on page, let's see, we're on. I believe that's number 10.
Dwayne, I'll let you help address those issues or concerns regarding this budget, okay?
On page 10, we have Constitution Square. It's the 5405 numbers. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about real quick, because on your notes, we start off with revenue. But one thing I do want to, that I put in the general fund notes, and as I had finished with my Constitution Square, and while I was doing the general fund, I thought it was important to list this. But the Constitution Square endowment, the 4721 revenue account, 5% of the endowment fund goes to the grant account and available for the Boyle County Fiscal Court to draw on annually. And we do that in December, usually in the past. And there's a small administrative fee of 0.5% for the first million of the fund balance, which we haven't gotten close to that million, but hopefully we'll get there. But that's one thing that I did put in those notes because I thought it was important as part of your revenue. But outside of that, as you can see in your notes in the 1920 projection, and Dwayne can respond to this, but my question was, do I request a grant of $7,000 from the endowment, or do I wait and push this off, since we originally said when we replace the cabin's roof is when we should do the ask? And Dwayne has since informed me that probably isn't going to happen this year, so I'd like to take that out of the budget, in addition to this whole conversation, because again, it's calling for a draw on the endowment, and I need some direction about a number that I need to put in the budget for this fiscal year It's currently set at $20,000. I don't have any projects set up for this year's fiscal year's expense account budget for that property's down there. So we need to have this conversation, and I don't know if it's a conversation that we delay until the next meeting when I think there's going to be a representative from the Constitution Square Committee that is going to have a recommendation, and maybe then at that point in time for first reading and have it available for second reading to secure those amounts. I know that seems confusing, but this endowment draw is something that you all need to give me direction so I can do that in December and get these monies back into the fiscal court budget. And I believe we have up to $32,000 or $35,000 that in December of 2020 that we can draw on. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we have these conversations. And I turn that over to Dwayne.
You said, did you say 32,000?
It's around that amount.
I received a quote recently just to replace one of those roofs, and it has tripled over the initial cost. And that's what the 7,000 was for the initial quote that I had probably about 9 months ago to a year. The current bid to replace one of those roofs was quote was about 21,000. So I don't know if we go 25 there to have that, to maybe try to begin replacing the roof next, this next budget year or not, but I guess that's what I would suggest.
Dwayne, John, could you give me some idea of what type of roof that is? Is it the regular wood roof? Tom some time ago said that he thought there was a wood roof that was not wood. It was something artificial. So I don't know if that ever was thought of. And I also wonder why it tripled. What brought that up?
Well, the materials, for one thing, I don't know why. I don't have an explanation of why they went up so much, but the materials went up that much is the main cost increase. It is of course a shake roof right now. I do remember Tom saying something about he thought there might have been something beneath that was different, or than the shake roof. So I don't know.
Let me jump in here. This is Tom. Williamsburg and Winston-Salem and others are going to a synthetic concrete that from 12, 15 feet away, you cannot tell that it's not a shake shingle. The problem is that would be all the more expensive. The duration on it, I think, is something in the 40 to 50 year range minimum. But I'm afraid that would be unaffordable.
Okay,
I got you.
You got different weight with that type of shingle too.
Not too much. Remarkably, there's not a great deal of additional weight in this synthetic concrete product, but the cost is prohibitive.
Well,
I probably need to have this conversation also. I was, we were just kind of looking at numbers. At some point, we need to have this conversation with the Heritage Council, but once before they said that we had to replace, we had to put back what was there. In other words, if we replace a shake roof, we got to put a shake roof back. We didn't specifically talk about the shake roof, so I can ask them a little more detail and see if there was any other options.
Dwayne, we really need to get that in writing, because I know of cases all over Kentucky where people moved on a historic property with less than what was there to start with, and they were sued and had to take down or take off whatever they did. So we really need in writing from the Heritage Council what exactly we have the liberties to do.
You're right, and and the only reason I made that statement, I did talk to them about the brick sidewalk, about some possibilities of something different, and that was the response I received back from them, was that we had to put back the same thing that we took up or took off. So in other words, on the brick sidewalk, we had to go back with brick, and we couldn't do something different. So, but I'll be glad to talk to them again about the roof on the cabins and see what they, and sometimes they have some options that they can offer.
Right.
And
Judge,
just,
is there a recommendation from the committee on this issue? Or I know the committee hadn't had a chance to meet much, but is this a committee decision or is this, or a recommendation?
That's what I think we put the committee together for, and Steve Knight will be on with us on Thursday. So outside of budgetary considerations, anything that relates to those kind of expenditures priority wise, I would defer to Thursday. But regarding Mary's issue with the 7,000 this year or next year, I definitely believe, given the time constraints, Mary, if I understand correctly, we need to make a motion that not be drawn until next year. Is that right?
Right.
So moved,
Yeah.
Ellis.
and
Yay,
one of the things that I just wanted to clarify again is that in the grant account, we're adding to it at the rate of around $5,000, $4,500 to $5,000 a year, depending upon, you know, what kind of year we have. Let me just clarify that. And so if you use the full 32, then you're going to go back to subsequent year draws of around $5,000 until that fund gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's how your grant money comes. It'll slowly get larger as well, but there's not a lot of work being done into adding to that fund. So with that being said, until, you know, the committee gets that ball rolling, that grant amount isn't going to increase. So, you know, I guess primarily we need to keep in the back of our mind, do we draw it all, or do we just draw a portion of that, say half of it or something, and use it to offset maybe doing a couple of, a couple of projects, because there are no projects. And to me, it would seem prudent to, maybe do the brickwork and then defer a roof and then start doing the roofs. Get the ground safe and then start replacing the roofs. But that's a call that, and then only draw, half of that money to offset the brickwork this year, and then maybe leave half of that money for next year.
Dwayne?
Just a thought, and keep that in the back of your head.
Dwayne, I think folks are going to hyperventilate when they hear from you what the brickwork on the walkway is going to be. And roofs mean structural damage. I know that the walkway is in peril of tripping people, but I also know where we stand on the bids coming in. Do you mind speaking to what that could cost? Because there goes the fund.
Well, and I think, Mary, I don't have that number right in front of me. I can grab it. Maybe, do you have it? Do you remember
What's
the cost estimate on the brick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
$38,000.
Yeah. Well, and way more than we're going to try to tackle in 1 year, but I think Mary makes a good point. I mean, that's a pretty large liability. We do not have any leaks right now that we know about in any of our buildings. So, I mean, we could very well take that money and use it toward at least doing a part of that sidewalk this year. I think that would be a good place to start. And then we can go from there.
One of the questions I have too is under your notes, there was to replace a window on Grayson Tavern, and the total cost of that was $10,200. And I don't know how prudent that was to get that taken care of either.
That was replacing all of them. We've looked at that more since, and I think we can probably just go in and repair the ones that need some repair, and for a whole lot less money.
Okay. All right. So I don't know. Do you want to put the $38,000 in the budget for the brick replacement for right now?
How many bids do we have on brick replacement, Dwayne?
I just got one quote. I didn't, I was just seeking to give us an idea on the cost.
Yeah.
Oh, I take that back. That's in the budget. I apologize.
To me, that just sounds like a whole lot of money for that distance, but then.
Yeah, I agree with everything.
Can we,
that's been
I'm
said.
sorry.
Go ahead, Jason.
Do we have to go the actual brick route, can we look at some other options that are, more cost effective?
No,
Well,
Wayne, this found
we-
out from the Heritage Council, correct?
that's correct. We have to replace brick with brick. Now, we can look at
How
laying it
about
on.
brick, how about
sand
brick
again.
look?
We can, we can look at putting it on sand rather than on concrete. And then you run the same, risk of issues that we're having now.
Right.
Hold on. So, but seriously, okay. Heritage Council as in here locally or at the state
No,
level?
Frankfurt.
Frankfurt,
State level. That's part of the,
Can we
the
not-
county accepting the county accepting
Yeah,
the,
I understand that,
the
Jimmy.
park. There's a huge long list of things that we have to abide by in operating and
Can-
maintaining the park.
Can we pour concrete and give it a look of brick?
no.
Like a stamp.
Are you sure? We can't stamp it.
It can be done, and we can ask again, but now, when I asked about that and we talked about doing some alternative stuff and using concrete, they said, no, it had to be brick.
Okay, well,
Dwayne-
let's push back a little bit and see if we can do like a stamping of some sort to make it look like brick. Given the financial state that we're in right now, they need to be a little lax on this.
Dwayne, if you put that brick in sand, if it's done right, it'll last a long time.
Well, and it will, and as long as we don't have any root issues, and that's a lot of our problem out there now is the root issues. And then, of course, just the age, for as many years as it's been there, they've walked or buckled a little bit.
Yeah, Dwayne, I was gonna suggest, I don't know if you've talked to, but there's a contractor right now working in the back of Old Center that's doing the brick work there is being done in sand behind Old Center. They're literally currently working
I'll go over and
right
look at
now
it. And I know
behind
who
Old
that,
Center.
isn't that Dawson Horky?
I'm not sure who it is doing it, but they're doing a nice job with it. It looks great. They're
They may have-
redoing that whole back plaza area
Okay.
back there.
And they may have a sub doing it, but Dawson Horky, I think, is the one that has the contract.
Yeah.
I'll go and talk to him.
Dwayne, I agree with Jay that we're in a different period of time now, and some of those rules may be a little more flexible now. So
I don't think so.
I think Jason's point's well made.
Good point. Good point.
I
and
tell you what, I would volunteer to go with Dwayne over to the Heritage Council in Frankfurt and sit face to face and make a presentation plea on both, maybe the potential roof issue, so we know what we're facing there, and the sidewalk issue, because I think it's a lot easier to say no over the phone or by letter than it is in person.
Agree.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I guess the point I was going to make though, and I think we're all in agreement, is obviously, as Tom said, the roofs are critically important to protect the structure integrity. But I also think that the sidewalks from a liability perspective really need to be addressed. And I'm hoping we will incorporate that, as it already is currently in the budget right now. I'm hoping we will leave that in. And then obviously we need to hear from the committee, from the Constitution Square Committee, and get their feedback and advice on that too. But
We'll hear that Thursday.
Mary, did you say the brick was already in the budget?
Yeah, I put it's underneath, it's 709-1 Constitution Square Capital,
Okay.
and it's $38,000. So what I
Right.
need to do is have the fiscal court remove that $7,000. And I can probably do it without a motion, but I need to remove in 2019 the expenditure of $7,000 for a roof and the $7,000 request of revenue from the endowment to offset that cost, which is a zero amount. So I'll just do that. I don't think I need I don't, because it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect your carryover, but I'm going to delete those two items just for your information, because we're not going to do that.
and Judge, and
And Dwayne, if we do have to do anything with brick, are you able to salvage any of the brick that's sitting over there by the Perryville Convenience Center? Are we able to use any of that?
We will look. It all depends on whether it's the same well, we just have to look. You know, the thicknesses and things
Okay.
like that have, play a lot into that.
Right,
There's a
I
lot
think-
of it over there.
Pavers. Those are pavers, and that one would be questionable by the Heritage Council, but we can check it out.
Right.
Judge, if I may, I'd like to add that I think the committee, one of the reasons for the committee was to set priorities of repair to Constitution Square, and I don't want us to shut them out of having the opportunity to have input.
Exactly, and I think that Knight is prepared to present a prioritized list of repairs on Thursday.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
we put them together. We went to a lot of effort to put them together, and I don't want them to think we slammed the door on them.
Well, I don't either, and that would not be the right
Right.
thing to do.
Hey,
I
Mary
agree
and
with
Jeff,
John wholeheartedly because we this was kind of one of these things where it comes off of us and goes on to them as being more people that have better expertise in this than we do. So let's utilize the people we've put together, like John said.
right.
Make them feel a part of it.
Exactly. I agree with all that. I was going to ask Mary and Judge, I know we've talked a little bit in the past about this, and we mentioned waiting until the budget time, and that's where we are, but is bringing and getting them to join us, and possibly even on Thursday, the Community Foundation, I think it's Community Foundation of Louisville, or whatever the group is that manages the endowment, to give us some more feedback and education, I guess, if you will, on the endowment fund and how that works. And I still feel like I don't know a whole lot about that, as we've been trying to learn and move forward with that. And I know right now we're not in a position to really add to it, but I think over time we may need to, once things get back to a more normal situation, look at that. But I would like to see what their perspective is of the fund and under today's circumstances.
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak for the judge, but I don't think it's timely to do it Thursday. I think there's a
Oh, I
lot
don't
going
either.
on. But soon thereafter, yeah, we can have that conversation.
Yeah,
I'm like you, Mary. I don't think we'd have time to do it by Thursday.
No,
No, if you guys don't mind, I'd rather wait until we get this budget off the
Yep.
DOG and back before we look at that for next year's information, so to speak.
yeah, because it's not gonna
Dwayne?
change the net effect of what we're doing.
Dwayne, I'm still blown away that the shingles would increase 3 times in 9
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, we were
Is this
too.
Yeah, I bet you were. I am really amazed because I think you're going to see some contraction of prices.
I think
in the
so.
future.
I think things will normalize, in a few months,
Yeah.
6 months.
Okay.
Better.
Let's hope so.
Is there anything else on Constitution Square, Mary, for today?
The
I got
only
one
thing is,
more.
I'm sorry.
I apologize, man. I got one more thing I want to say. Dwayne, thank you for fixing that corner by the corner that had the brick issue.
By
Yeah.
Goldsmith.
Second
Second.
It looks good. You fixed it. Looks good. Want to just point that out.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, this year, in this budget year, they also had a sewer repair was one of our major expenditures to row house number 1 in the amount of around close to $1,000. We also did a bathroom water fountain repair, and we did trim some trees this past year out of our line items that were a little bit more expensive than just routine repairs. Under your capital expenditures for this fiscal year that we're currently in, we had flower maintenance. There was 2 signs created and erected in the amount of $2,000. And if I'm not mistaken, the CBB paid for the other half of that. So I think the cost was a total of $4,000, and thank you to the CBB for that. And finally, we are going to be paying for the flowers to payable to the Boyle County Horticulture Department at the Boyle County High School. Next year's budget has $9,000 in it, in the 709 account, which is the capital. And in that right now is a flower purchase that will come next spring. But you know, at one point in time, we did have flower maintenance, and I don't suspect we'll have any flower maintenance since we now have a flower maintainer. So there's a little bit of money in that account. If we spend $2,500 on the flowers, there's a balance there that can be used for anything that may come up that needs the attention of some capital, such as a window or repair or something like that. So just keep that in mind. We do have some flexibility in that account. And with all of that, that's all I have to say. Dwayne?
We're picking up the flowers tomorrow.
And
When are you gonna plant them?
We'll begin planting tomorrow and into Friday, and I think the garden club is going to come around and help us, assist us with that, which we appreciate.
They have 8 volunteers, so I've been told.
Yes.
Wow.
and that is great.
Right.
And my hat's off to the garden club and Martha Kaywood for her leadership in that capacity to help us with this. The reason it's not been in the ground so far, they're ready for the ground, talking to James Ross, is because of the weather and the rain and the frost that we had just last week. So that's why they held off putting them into the ground.
They're supposed
I'll
to
be
rain tomorrow.
I'll be glad when they get planted, because I'm tired of the pillow talk on Constitution flowers.
We got to give you something to talk about there, Madison Kaywood.
Okay. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
All right, let's see. Next on the agenda is information technology. Is Bill online? All right, we can't see your smiling face, but we know you're there. All right.
So we are now on page 6. Page 6 of your notes. I mean,
Page
of
6.
your spreadsheet. And then everybody should have some notes.
Got 1 page of notes.
Yes, sir.
What's the number, Barry, please?
And it's a 5057
Got
listing
it.
of numbers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Thank you.
So there's no specific revenue line items that offsets this department. We added this department about, what, 8 years ago, Bill?
All right.
Okay, so there were certain department heads, such as your treasurer and Dwayne and the sheriff and the clerk, who were actually doing all of our own internal IT work with the help of some contracts. And we felt like, and this year certainly has paid for itself, the hiring of an IT professional to help us move into the next, I guess, century of IT upgrades. And so we're glad to have Bill with us. He's our first and only IT director for the Boyle County Fiscal Court, and we can get into his expenses. Again, 3% on salaries. Some of the tasks that he's going to perform for us are listed here. He's almost done, I mean, but he has a pretty good solid inventory of computers, servers, printers, peripherals by department, and I think it needs to include the operating system and loaded software and their expiration dates. And so that's something that I always felt like was important to have, and we're right on the cusp of finishing all that up. We also have an inventory of the equipment down in the basement that and I need to clarify this. We do not have a morgue in the basement. We have a computer morgue in the basement. So it's where all good computers go to die. We next have a disaster recovery plan that Bill keeps up with. The next update will be in the next fiscal year. And then the security, electronic media usage, and protection of personal information policy was combined and presented in 1819. And this up and coming budget year will be an update on that policy. And then Bill felt like there needs to be a social media policy because that has become, I guess, an issue with businesses across the United States. So he's completed a complete flow chart of the local area networks and computers and printers departmentally and how they're connected, which is just so lovely. So if anything were to happen or Bill were to leave, we can pass that good, solid information on to the next person that will come into his place.
Mary, I think it'd be noteworthy at this point, talking about those accomplishments, is that CAECO did send some people over here, some of their best IT folks to work with Bill, and as just a systems review kind of visit, and we got some good information to help us for the roadmap of moving forward. But we also validated that we're maybe not as far off or as bad as we thought we could have been.
Right. Absolutely. And they did make a small amount of recommendations. Some of the recommendations were recommendations they were familiar with. So that doesn't mean that we're not doing any, something that may be equitable to what they recommended. But I actually pulled this thing out at budget time and just kind of reread it again and kind of highlighted a few items just to make sure that there wasn't something. I mean, one of the things we did is they made a recommendation about firewalls, and we completed that in 2019. We took their recommendation and updated it, and so it wasn't a lost, I guess, process. It wasn't a waste of time by any means. So thank you, Judge. Yes, it was a wonderful document, and we didn't have to pay for that because CAECO was kind enough to send their people over at no charge as a support to their local counties. Do you want to add anything, Bill?
I think the only thing that I'd like to add to it is one of the recommendations they did make was and we'll may get into that at some point in this, but was the current Ethernet wiring in the courthouse. That was where we could stand to have our largest improvement.
Yeah, pulling wiring to a central location, and then suggesting the implementation of layer switches, and creating, I guess, the creation of a VLAN. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am. But basically just getting everything up to Cat 6 and coming to one location so we don't have all these switches throughout the building. Everything is housed in one area, and it's much easier to troubleshoot and maintain.
And that'll come later whenever we start talking about facilities. So anyway, so there's some of the things that Bill's responsible for. Getting back specifically to his budget, we increased his repair and maintenance line item, and that is listed there. It was increased to accommodate a vehicle that was adopted from EMS, and our budget went from $1,000 to $2,500. Office supplies, fuel remained the same. Liability, we always kept fuel in his budget. For some reason, I always kept a line item in there for fuel because on occasion he would ask for reimbursement for fuel with travel expenses. Training, we kept the same at $1,200. Right now, we're only using about 500 of that, but if anything comes along that we feel like is necessary to keep ourselves up, we have the opportunity to spend additional money for training. Telephone, I increased by $50, and new equipment this year was $1,200, and we purchased a team viewer, which is something that you can go in and look at people's computers with. We budgeted a network server cabinet, and that was free to us. But we do have now a network server cabinet that's very nice, that was given to the county. And then we have some routine replacements, Oasis software, and then there was a new cell phone that was purchased along with FirstNet. His 2021 budget includes GoToMeeting as opposed to TeamViewer, a docking station for his laptop, lighting and shelving for the infamous basement computer morgue, vehicle IT logo for $150, and a little ladder that he can use if he goes from one place to another, and then some routine replacements. One of the things he did ask for was, and this is kind of the same thing that we did with the jailer, is the request to drive a vehicle off-site, and the county allow him to do that. So we can have that discussion if you'd like. And when I say off-site, I mean to take it every evening. I don't think it's going home, but it's going to an off-site location, a different parking lot.
And just to add to that, I mean, the only reason I'm looking to do that is it doesn't happen very often, but probably 3 to 4 times a year, I'll get called out by the detention center late at night. And so that means I would, if I need any equipment out of the car, I would have to come into here to get the car and then go to the detention center, where I'd just be able to respond a lot quicker. I know in the past that networking issues sometimes weren't that immediate of an issue, but I know that the jail, with all their check-in digital devices that they're using now, that their network and their stuff is becoming more imperative. And I just think it's a very small request for efficiency in your IT department.
So I guess that question, I thought you were going to take it to an off-site location and not home. Has that since changed?
No, ma'am, that has not changed. The off-site location is across from the Boyle County Fairgrounds. It would be under camera surveillance, and I have to pass that to come into town anyway.
If there's any discussion needs to be made, I think that's a reasonable request, in my opinion. If anybody else has any comment about that, so speak up. I see some left to right head shake, so I guess that we're okay on all that.
I'd like to know, if it's okay, I'd like a vote, because that means he's allowed, we know with affirmation, and the payroll person knows with affirmation that she now will be tracking that in conjunction with the employee, because there's some IRS rules that we have to follow with all that, because he is not a police officer. And so it costs him money to do that.
Mary, is there an insurance issue? Is there additional insurance cost?
No, his vehicle will be insured, and it doesn't matter where it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I make the motion that the IT department be able to drive the vehicle off-site and that we follow appropriate IRS guidelines and rules in monitoring and tracking the fuel and other costs associated.
Is there a second to the motion?
Short second.
Seconded by Magistrate Short. Is there any discussion other than what we have discussed? Okay, I'm gonna do it just a little bit differently. I'll go by name and you give me your vote. Gay,
Yes.
Well, I couldn't hear any of that. So can we redo it, because I was completely distorted when I
you want to
trying to listen.
restate?
So what is it again?
Restate the motion, Magistrate Gay, please, sir.
Yes, that the IT department be able to drive vehicle off-site and park at a appropriate location, and that IRS regulations and guidelines be tracked and followed appropriately for fuel consumption and any other issues associated.
Sounds good. You did that pretty much verbatim. You did great. All right.
Second.
Short is the second, is seconded, and Magistrate Short, your vote.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Magistrate Cullen, your vote. You gave me the thumbs up visually. That's a yes. Magistrate Kaywood,
Yes.
yes. Magistrate Ellis
Yes.
and Magistrate Salmons.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mary.
No, thank you all. And just
Thank you.
What
Can
is
I
that?
ask,
Oh, go ahead.
Mary, were you wrapping up, or was I interrupting you?
No, please, go ahead, Magistrate Kaywood.
Steve, Bill, in this discussion, just, we can bring it up later, but I still would like to hear where we are on Kentucky Wired. I haven't heard much about that lately. And the other discussion point that I thought was pulling wire, would that help when the day comes that we replace our phone system?
I'm happy to address Kentucky Wired if you would like me to here. Basically, they have made the connection down to the box. It has not been turned on yet, I don't believe, but I know that the fiber has been connected and run. But at this point, that's the last of that, and that was probably well before the winter break when they did that. I think it was like the end of December. And I'm sorry, Magistrate Kaywood, what was the second part of the question?
The pulling of the wire that you mentioned, maybe updating the wire at the courthouse, would that be something that would be a part of the new phone system when that day comes, when we replace the phone system we presently have?
I think that's probably going to be mandatory for any phone system that we go with, whether we decide to go with a on-site system, whether we decide to go with a cloud system, or whether we decide to even go with something like Office 365 that offers an entire phone system with their stuff. The infrastructure of the courthouse is imperative.
So we would have to do it anyway then.
Either some way or another, either if we're lucky enough, maybe if somebody, we like a certain phone system, we may have them do it, or like I said, during the wintertime, Engineer Campbell has offered to help me wire the courthouse, unless we're just covered with snow. Sometimes they're looking for things to do, and we could, I could manage that project myself.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sorry, man.
No, that's all good. So I was just basically wrapping up the IT. Now, there'll be some additional conversations about IT issues that Bill's worked with us in the general fund portion of our budget workshop. So he'll stay on the line and answer any questions when we get to those things that are in the county's budget as opposed to in his budget.
All right, next, it looks like on our agenda is Soil Conservation Department budget.
And I think it's page 16, if I'm counting correctly, but it's, if you go to the very end of the general fund, it's 2 pages, the third page back, and it starts with 5235. And this is a brand new department in your budget. And the reason I selected 5235 is because, you know, all of our account codes are set by the legislature, believe it or not. It's kind of interesting. But these are actual, the soil conservation services expenditure. So since I felt like we were doing these services in lieu of the soil conservation district doing these services, I needed to use the 5235 account numbers. So that's what we have. And so again, if you hear me talk about soil conservation, you know what we're talking about. And the first thing on your notes, if everybody has your notes, again, they're real short and sweet. The very first thing under revenue is, do I request the balance of the $40,000? I did that today.
Good.
So that's been done. And I sent them a nice little letter talking about when we would be requesting this money again, to kind of give them a heads up, and then the opportunity to call us back if they have any questions or have any other additional directives to go along with that. So your 2021 budget revenue is set at $70,000, which, as in my correspondence to the Conservation District, will be requested in March of 2021. So we'll get $40,000 this fiscal year and $70,000 next fiscal year. And I did ask them to give us that money before June 30th so we can get that in this year's budget. The total salary budget, and the salaries include the benefits as well. So that's what that $44,580 is the total of the salary all the way down to 209, which is the workers' comp line item. And again, that's 2/3 of a full-time employee salary at the rate that was set for that individual to do this job on behalf of the Boyle County Fiscal Court and Conservation District. But the Social Security and retirement are split based on where that individual works, but all of the full-time benefits are in the soil conservation budget because the position was created for the service. The 2021 budget is the grant composting equipment. And so the total budgeted expenses without the grant sit at $56,630 as of today. That's not actual. We've not gotten into what we're even doing or what it's going to cost the county, but that's what the total budgeted expenses are. And they include site repair and maintenance, which I've not been told to do anything different. Machinery and equipment at $2,000, any supplies or materials that the individual needs at $1,000. Fuel at $3,500, uniforms sit at $300, and miscellaneous at $250. And then of course the grant expenditure, which is offset by the grant revenue. Does anybody have any questions about what we've done here? Okay, well, I guess with that being said, I guess we can move into the next part of our budget.
And that's the general budget workshop.
And that would be our general fund budget workshop. And I apologize, it took me a little bit longer to put these notes together. And I did these over the weekend and finished them up on Monday morning. And I apologize, I didn't get them out until Monday morning because they were quite a few notes. But I think you're familiar with the majority of what's included in those notes. So let's start on page 1 of your budget notes, which is revenue. And as we go through these, please stop me at any given time. And if everybody has your notes together and your spreadsheet, one of the first things I listed was the personal property tax rate in in the fiscal year 2018-19, because if you take your finger across and you drag it across and you look at personal property tax, which is your 4102 account, there's a great decrease, and it goes from the almost $200,000 amounts to $139,000. Personal property tax is kind of like a roll with the dice. It all depends upon when a corporation or business files those assessments. So if there are assessments that are filed late and they don't get into the overall assessments, our assessments are down, which means our tax collections are down, which means those will be collected in a different fashion, and it can come from the state, which it usually does come from, and those are usually your delinquent tax collections from the state, or they can be deferred to the next year. So I don't have any control over any of that kind of process, but that is an anomaly. And then it also flows with, what corporations have on site. Their inventory can be drastically reduced during any given year, based on, their own internal operations. So those assessments again affect your personalty collections. Real property pretty much it relatively increases every year, even though we usually take I've lost my train of thought. I apologize. We also have new property that's reported during every given year. And again, talking with PVA, our next year's collection should be on target. We've had new assessments added to our current assessments, and not a lot of property taken off of our assessment. As we had this conversation, we'll be in a pretty good position. The only thing I'm concerned about in some of the financial strategy that I've been reading for COVID-19 is, be concerned about delinquency filings. Are people going to be able to pay their taxes at the end of the year? So just something to kind of keep in the back of your head. I did not reduce the real property tax or the personal property tax for that specific, because we're hoping that, if it's not collected on the front end, it'll be collected and turned over from delinquencies. So we'll just have to keep our eye on that. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm sorry, like I lost connection and it just jumped to this. Did I completely miss part of this conservation district?
Oh, you missed the whole, it wasn't, yeah. I didn't know if you couldn't hear us. Jason.
All right.
Do you want to, we can always tack that on to the end here.
I have questions about the conservation district, because when I looked them up through Department of Local Government, and I sent you the link, Mary. They've got quite a bit of money in their account.
Oh, you found it?
And so, yeah, I sent you the link.
Well, I apologize. Yesterday,
according to what they're. No, I sent it to you this morning.
Oh,
So, but according to their, so they're the Boyle County Soil and Water Conservation District is what they're listed as. Is that correct?
Should be.
yes.
We looked yesterday and we
And
couldn't
it's
find.
Mary Lawrence.
Yep.
And so according to the financial information that we have here, they're, according to 2019 disclosure report, I'm looking at this crap correctly, year-end actuals, they had $272,125.28.
No, that's not it.
Zero debt service, and that totals, I sent you two links. 273, 102.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead, Jason.
So grand totals, their year-end actual is 273,153.50. It's like they're collecting about 163,000 in taxes. Intergovernment revenue is about 95,000. Charges for services about 6,500. Other revenue is about 5,400. Interest. Then they're getting appropriations, and yeah, looks like they're sitting pretty.
And then I've requested, that's at the end of the fiscal year, so. So
Yeah,
we've
just take a look at that.
requested,
Maybe we can circle back to that, but if the conservation district is a taxing entity, we may want to kind of look to see how much we are giving them from our taxes, because it's kind of like they're getting two taxes.
They're getting two taxes?
Yeah, well, they've got the conservation tax, and then they're also getting money from Boyle County taxpayers, through us. So if we're giving more to them, and they've got plenty of money here, well, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at this differently, but they're getting revenue from us and revenue from the taxpayers. So,
What we're giving them, maybe the first year you could be right, but and maybe not right now. I think they're paying for everything that we're spending. So I don't know what we're giving them.
sorry, you're breaking up again. So I didn't hear any of that. I'm sorry.
I don't know what we're giving them.
Hello. No,
Yeah,
it sounds like, if I heard part of this correctly, did I hear that we're paying part of for the worker? We're paying part of their benefits?
yeah, we're paying, the county is paying for it all, and then I'm requesting, this year I'm requesting $40,000. Today I requested $40,000 of their money to offset our expenses. And then I'm going to be requesting again in March of next year, after they collect taxes again, another $70,000 to offset our expenses.
So we pay, so the fiscal court and the county pays zero for them, correct?
Well, that's what it's got
Basically,
to.
yes.
We don't have any expense.
We shouldn't have, and I'm going to do a reconciliation
Okay,
at the end of every year to make sure that we're not having an expense.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if they're collecting it, they've got that kind of money in reserves, that the county is not footing anything for a bill. And also, that should take care of plenty of animal disposal as well, wherever it goes.
Yeah, and I agree. And the only thing that we need to get Conservation District in the habit of doing is when they start up their meetings is they need to keep you all informed now even more so about their, number one, their meetings that they're having and when they're having them and the minutes associated with those and the financial statements that go along with those meetings.
Yeah, there hasn't been an audit since 2016, so I don't know how often they're supposed to be doing that, but I would argue we probably should have one. They had one in 14 and 16, but no others.
I will mention that as I did in Mary's presence yesterday, Master Cullen, that we could not find the information at DLG's site. You found it, but he will address the budget and the audit issues with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on soil conservation? Okay.
No, thank you for going back. I apologize.
If I may, Judge, when you say board, he's talking about his board, or is he referring to the court as a board?
No, his board.
Yeah.
I would think that there's some regulations that have to do with the audit of taxing districts.
There is.
Okay, then I don't know what they are.
And I mentioned it to him yesterday that we could not see some, and he said, I will look into it and address the issue and we'll see what we can do.
Well,
I think this was information that we really needed to know.
it's probably required by state law, I suspect.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
In DLG. But it
Yeah.
wasn't there. And so I said, we need to see it.
They need to
Yeah,
do
so
it. You're right.
If it helps, sorry, John, if it helps, I just searched by all taxing districts in Boyle County under SPGEs. And it listed every one that's there, and that's where I was able to find the soil and water conservation district. So,
Okay. Thank you.
I just did a general search, but yeah, no, you're correct. We do need to have it. All of these gentlemen do this information, especially ahead of time. So,
They do their own audits. I mean, the state does the conservation district's audits, if that makes sense to you. They have to do a special taxing district, which they do the SPEG every year. But basically, they have their own, the state conservation has their own people that does their audits every so often. They're not like a Mary or anybody else.
There's only one Mary.
yeah, I was gonna say there's only one Mary, so yeah.
Thank goodness, Mary.
Moving right along.
All right, well,
Okay,
good.
so
let's get back on.
Magistrate Cullen, are we done with soil conservation? Are you comfortable in moving forward?
Moving right along.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go back to the Boyle County Fiscal Court, general fund revenue, and I've talked about real personal property, and I've talked about personal property. I mean, real property and personal property taxes. And the other driver that we have is motor vehicle property tax. I don't know, I don't have any control over the collections of those. Those are turned over, as well as the delinquent taxes from the clerk. But most of those are pretty stable, as you can see, and I didn't make any adjustments in those this year. Net deposit tax, I did set at $100,000. That's a tax that the county treasurer herself bills to each one of the local banks in Boyle County. I actually issue the tax statement out of my office. We may want to consider lowering that. I don't know. I don't have a real good feeling for that, but this is based off of the tax that we assess is based off of net deposits. So if we think total net deposits, which I'm not really quite sure, we'll have a decrease in net deposits when people are not working. If you look at the unemployment rolls, they're receiving unemployment, so there's still depositing going on. So I wasn't inclined to reduce this one unless you feel as a fiscal court it needs to be reduced. Any suggestions?
I would suggest, I mean, we need to watch it, but at this point in time, I would not suggest a reduction in that.
And I'm in
I
agreement.
agree. I agree with that. I don't think you're going to see that.
Okay, I agree too. Now, your occupational tax, the next one is, as you can see in your notes, based off of your 2020 figures, I increased that occupational tax by 66% and then reduced it by 25. And hopefully the 25 will take us out 12 months. But they feel like everything, all of the financial information during COVID-19, you know, looks at, I've read from 30 to 50% immediate decline, and then a slow recovery from there. So maybe for the duration, that 25% reduction will hold us. I know I told the finance committee that maybe a 30% reduction would be in line. They want to keep it at 25. You know, again, they said to take the top 10 taxpayers and compare them this year to next year. I have not had the opportunity to do that specifically. I'm going to do that today, or request that information today. I know other agencies have moved to 30%, but any direction that the fiscal court, again, I'm conservative, I would lean toward 30%, but I'm not gonna, the finance committee set it at 25. Any discussion about that? Leave it alone?
Leave it alone.
Okay.
Crapshoot anyway.
So we're gonna leave that alone. Deed tax is pretty stable, not touching that. Net profits, I dropped that down. One of the things that we're doing with net profits too is, which increases some of our fiscal years, is that occupational tax administrator was turning over to the county and the city estimated payments. And I think we've had this conversation that we are holding estimated payments until a tax return is filed. And then we know exactly what the liability is to the taxpayer and to the county. Because in certain instances, we're making large refund checks in certain years to turn those back over out of general fund money back over to the taxpayer because they overpaid an estimated payment. And I don't want those coming to the fiscal court's budget anymore until a final tax return for that fiscal year has been filed. So that's going to put your net profits in a more stable long-term projection, because when you have some years where you have 3 and 4 large businesses making estimated payments of $80,000, it just distorts things, and then those get turned over, and I don't want that money anymore. I don't want to spend that money anymore. So that's what we've done there.
I was going to say, good catch there. We do want that money.
But I don't want to spend it if it's not ours. So.
Amen.
So you can see there we have delinquent taxes, paid excess fees. As I've noted in your notes, that these are set by the sheriff and the clerk from their budget. Just to give you a heads up, as we go through this budget, you will see that the county clerk is going to take over her employee benefits, and she will be submitting a budget amendment to the fiscal court at the next meeting, I believe, because it needs to be done before the turn of the, maybe even in June, I'm not really quite sure, but we need to do it before July 1 when she starts taking on her expenses. And that may be modified at second reading if we do it early enough and the state tells us it's okay to modify that. Otherwise, they will not approve your budget if it's any different from what your county clerk and county sheriff have submitted to their office. A lot of these we've talked about when we've talked about the departments, but one of the things that we have here is the Occupational Tax Commission. And as you can see, the 2021 budget includes collections through December 31st, 2020, payable through March 31, 2021, and any residual late filers. Because anything that the cutoff date is December 31st, but understand those December 31st filers will be paying up through March in net profits and occupational tax, and anybody that's a late filer will still be paying the Boyle County Fiscal Court, and we will be keeping a commission, a small commission, but all of the new tax returns will be split between the city of Danville and the county of Boyle. I think before this happens, the city and the county, I'm going to suggest very adamantly that we have a plan of transition so that our filers are very clear about what's to transpire come December 31st. And we need to have a clear line of communication between the city and the county, because a lot of times we find filing errors on a joint return. So, I'm advocating that we still file with the city and the county the same type of return as a joint return. You only pay the city their portion directly to them and the county their portion directly to them, because again, we have found taxpayers who are only paying city taxes and they're not filing with Boyle County. And if we eliminate that joint form, we'll never find those people that are in the city not paying county taxes, and for that matter, vice versa. So I want to kind of let you mull on that. I've talked to the tax administrator about that, just because I think it's important that there's full disclosure, and that's all I have to say about that right now. Cable franchise is another thing. The county has a 5% cable franchise agreement. We actually do have a franchise agreement that the Commonwealth of Kentucky took over for us because they felt like in their infinite wisdom that they needed to collect our franchise and turn what money's over to us that they feel appropriate and is within their computations. So those are your cable franchise. Let's see. The next thing I have here is these
Tell you,
are
I'm nearly getting concerned about state. What is appropriate statement anything coming from them after what they've done with a lot of cuts that we haven't got into yet.
Yes. And I agree. So another thing that's on the list is election expense. That's the 4520. The rest of those we've already talked about in our departments. So we're collecting, and I apologize, that $15,000 it needs to be half of that, 7,500, because we are only going to have one election this year. And I didn't realize that until this weekend when I was doing my notes. I created the budget, but in going back and pulling from the election website what the election cycle is, there's a presidential election this year, but there's no elections next year. So we can talk about that as we get to the election. But I would like, if we reduce the election account, then I'd like to reduce the revenue along with it. But we can get to that in a minute. You can see there that we have a Board of Assessment and Appeals, and that works with the PVA administrator assessing new properties, and that goes, if they want to appear before a board, they have the ability to do that. Then there's even a legal process tax. We're taxed based on our census numbers, and that goes up to the Commonwealth for attorneys, for those attorneys for indigency. So that goes in that fund. Then we have AOC, which is on your list at the bottom of page 1. And that's what the judge was talking about. My first note is that this line item is the routine maintenance and base payment, and it includes the use allowance in accordance with the 26A statute. But in the last legislative session, there was a bill that had this tacked onto the back to reduce the use allowance for any county that shares a judicial process or center with a county courthouse. And so they've taken approximately $16,000 out of our budget and have kept that in their coffers to help shore up their expenses. And then it includes the rental costs where we actually lease parking spaces, and they reimburse us for those, as well as a certain percentage of our operating expenses. So we have that budgeted at $104,000 as opposed to $120,000. And then we have the projects, which is on page 2 of your notes. And those projects to date, you can see what we did this current fiscal year was the exterior painting, and then we had the water leak that they're going to reimburse us for. And then we had storm windows in the budget that we have moved into the 2021 budget. And so this is where the fiscal court needs to consider what's priority, if you want to keep them all in, or if you want to, because remember the $61,250 is half of these items listed here. It's half of the total expense, or 52.3%. So you have the storm windows listed, public restrooms. I keep talking about the first floor public restrooms need to be renovated, and then we need to start working on the second floor restrooms, and then we need to go up to the third floor restrooms, and then possibly start looking at the other smaller restrooms. But our restrooms have not been updated since I've started working here 30 years ago. And so if you ever get the opportunity to go into those public restrooms, they just need a little, and it's not a lot of money, but they need freshening up. There's some exterior brick tuck pointing that needs to be done on the courthouse, and some exterior brick entrance replacement that needs to be done. And then Dwayne and I have had this conversation about the roof leak repair. I don't think we need to be paying for that because I think there's problems with the shingles, and we need the county attorney to put some pressure on the vendor who did the work for 30-year shingles that are creating leaks in year 9. So I don't want to pay for that. I think we need to put some pressure on people. But any questions about what we have, and we can start maybe peeling off some of these projects in the expense side of things, which affects the revenue that comes into reimbursement. But that's what's going to reimburse you for the total expense. So you can double that. We talked about EMA. Moving on to page 2 of your big long spreadsheet. We also have court facility fees that the AOC monitors those funds. I have to report those to them so they know how much money we're getting in to do, because these court facility fees are earmarked by ordinance for the repair and maintenance of the courthouse. So they monitor these monies. and we're collecting about $40,000. Oh, one of the things I'd like to have you consider, and you don't have to do it, it's not a big deal, but under Constitution Square, I have requested to reduce the 4604 rent by $1,500 because the McDowell House staff person is going to perform the Constitution Square park reservations in lieu of paying rent. And the fiscal court approved us to do this back in November of last year. Can I have a motion to reduce that revenue line item?
So moved, Ellis.
Gay, second.
Jay, second. Any discussion on the 1,500 reduction in the budget? Give me your voice vote by name, please, sir.
Ellis, yes.
Ellis, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jamie Gay.
Yes.
Okay. Ronnie Short. We'll come back to Ronnie. Magistrate Kaywood.
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis already voted. Magistrate Cullen, excuse me.
He can't hear anything.
Ronnie Short, yes.
Okay, Ronnie Short is a yes. Magistrate
There,
Cullen,
now, Jay.
move on.
Sorry, I keep losing connection. I'm 15 feet away.
This is a vote. Are you up on the motion?
Maybe he can go to where Rusty was in the courthouse. I'm wondering, can you go up to where Rusty was and use that computer? Because you're not talking. You're freezing.
Bill, if you're online, see if we can do a rescue with Jason on this.
Well, can you go down and get him and show him where that witness room is, please?
For expediency, please. Phil Salmons.
Yes.
Yes. I believe his image is frozen. We have, Hunt, yes. We have enough for the motion to carry.
Yeah.
I hate to not get his vote. We'll try to do that momentarily for record purposes. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Motion
agree.
carried.
Judge, it's Ann. Jason gave thumbs up before he was frozen.
All right, we got a visual on approval before he was frozen. Thank you. So that's unanimous. Next, Mary.
So we also get revenue from an internet tower from Kentucky WiMAX. They lease our internet towers. Any questions about those? We've addressed Constitution Square. Good news, and I want to change the budget to include this because I got an email. I'm pretty excited about this, but KCO has announced that they are going to make another workers' comp dividend, and it will be payable in the 2021 fiscal year, and Boyle County's portion is approximately $18,500. So if I could add that to your budget, yay, good things.
That's
Can I add that to the budget, please?
That's a good company I represent, Marie.
What'd you say, Phil?
I said, that's a good company I represent.
You betcha.
Yeah. Yep, you're right.
So can somebody make a motion to put
Make a
that in the
motion
budget?
To make that a projection in the 2021 budget? Is that
I make
correct?
a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion.
Made by Magistrate Short, is there a second?
Second, Kaywood.
Second, Magistrate Kaywood. Any further discussion on the KCO workman's comp adjustment? We'll go by the room, about around the room. Let's see. Magistrate Gay, your vote, please.
Yes.
Magistrate Short, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen, your vote. We'll come
He's
back to
still,
him.
he's still getting hooked up.
Come back to him. Magistrate Kaywood, your vote.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Magistrate Ellis, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Salmons, your vote.
Yes, sir.
And Judge Hunt, yes. We will, we did, so we only have to get, Magistrate Cullen's vote on this issue, but,
Think about, go ahead, vote. I don't even know what it is.
okay, Magistrate Cullen, we have a motion to make an adjustment to, on the CAECO workman's comp, of $28,449.45 to be projected in the 2021 budget, which is a dividend. Well, it's not like a dividend, but it's just a projection of a return to the county based on our good workman's comp work.
Well, actually, no, Judge, this is a dividend.
Oh,
And it comes
okay, it's a
from
dividend.
back in the year, I think it's from 2007, 2008, because we were with them. And they've shored up, and now they're giving dividends to those of us who have been long-term members.
It's a dividend, but it's still based on our good safety work and workman's comp rates that we are real good with. So
And it's $18,500.
$18,500. Okay.
So we're just voting to accept it?
Yes.
I want to put it in 2021's budget.
2021 budget. Is he
He went
okay
to
with
the,
that, Ronnie?
he went to the other room.
Okay. There he is.
So Jason, can I put that in the 2021 budget?
It's supposed, you don't have to, you don't want to, it's not one. Okay.
Jason, your vote is what on the putting that in the 2021 budget?
That's fine.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Okay. Thank you. Unanimous.
What else did I miss? Anything good? Or am I just doesn't matter?
I didn't hear what you said. Excuse me.
We're meeting in person Thursday, right? Because I don't think I can take one more meeting of this.
We're going to do it from here on out, except for Thursday.
Sorry, what?
We'll meet in person Thursday.
Okay.
Well, that's
moving
good.
along.
I travel from the first floor to the second floor.
Okay, Mary.
So moving along to your notes, the attorney reimburses certain salaries of his staff, and that's notated in your budget. As you notice, the 4727-3, now I'm on page 3 of your general fund notes. If anybody has any questions about why that was so high, it included a Texas Eastern reimbursement that was turned over to the sheriff's office. So those reimbursements were up around $20,292 when we budgeted $250. That's usually not that high, but there's usually payments in there that throw it up into that area. So unless you have questions about that, we also get reimbursements from Boyle County School Board and KU because at one point in time, and I'm not really quite sure where we are with this because the city's taken over some of that land out there. We had to bill them for water usage that we paid for. And we will be making a final billing to them, I believe, in the next couple of days. And then there's, as you can see, there's a new line there. Underneath all of the 4727s, you go to the bottom there. Most of the rest of those reimbursements are self-explanatory, but the animal removal payments are actually the soil conservation payments of $40,000 and $70,000, as you can see. They are listed, and a lot of the rest of this stuff is just things that we have to account for, like the volunteer insurance payments. Those come from individuals who are ordered to do community service, and they offset the expense, and you will get the bill soon to renew our insurance for people who do court-ordered community service. That protects them while they're on the job doing their community service. So those are pretty much all of your revenue line items in the general fund. I reduced the interest rates substantially. Let's hope we can still generate that amount of interest. The other thing is on the next page, page 3 of your big long budget.
Hey, Mary, do you have what the new bottom line is on that revenue budget there?
It's funny you should ask. Yes, I do. So the new bottom line of revenue is $8,631,482, give or take a few thousand. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, moving on to your surplus. So you know, if you approve everything that I'm asked you to approve, your new total carryover is, instead of 3,000,005, it's 3,351,000. And one of the things that'll do is, and this may be confusing, but I've noted it here that I'm going to reduce the budget for the carryover for catastrophic events, which is $200,000, because I'm going to reduce it by a projected yearly amount for this year. And so if I reduce that $200,000, say to $150,000, that additional $50,000 is going to go up into your unencumbered surplus general, the first 4901. And then if we get any reimbursement, again, that'll be added to that $200,000 at the end of next year. So there's no questions about that. Again, you can see that I have a carryover new jail construction savings, and that is money that we will be carrying over for the end of the fiscal year, the last payment. Instead of directing, it's going to redirect that last debt service payment in 2020. You know, the imaginary debt service payment that we're not going to put that in the jail fund. We're going to put that in the general fund, and that's that $48,600. Your transfers out revised amount says $3,235,000. That has been reduced to $3,152,825. So, and that's primarily due to Public Works. So unless you have questions about that. And then at the very bottom there, you can see some transfers in and out. The Trail Grant Fund still owes the general fund $50,000, but it allows for additional upfront costs of $100,000 total.
How long has that been outstanding, and what's the resolution on it?
Yeah, and Dwayne and I were talking about this. I just can't believe we started this grant in 2017, and we're still in phase 1 and trying to get it finished up, phase 1. So these trail grants come in compartmentalized contractual agreements. So our first contract was for a certain amount of money for design, and we are finally getting done with design. We still have an amendment to the design contract that needs to be rectified. And they still owe us money from a draw request that I made in February, at the beginning of February. And it's, you know, it's the middle of May.
General, didn't you get somewhere with this, with one of our meetings? You were speaking with somebody that you thought you had this figured out?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a struggle, a daily struggle.
Judge.
I invest a lot of money in these grants.
That you had a contact or something like that? Yes, no.
Judge, he was wondering if you had.
Do I have a contact on the trail grant?
I thought you had mentioned this to somebody when we were in Frankfurt. And you had gotten a name or something to get this resolved. That
Funny story, I got that one resolved, but this is the one that came after that. That was the one in November, and I got that money in February, but this is money that I asked for in February that I'm still, so yes, Magistrate Cullen, the first one was taken care of, but I'm still begging for another payment.
can we reach out to that same person that helped you the other time or no? General?
Well, no, that person is no longer in state government that helped me last time.
Oh, now it all makes sense. Okay.
And he did help. He did help. He was an intermediary because the person on the trail grants worked in his department. So he was able to help and assist. And I don't know the new face yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
So hopefully we can get that construction done this summer, and we can get this one off of our desk, and I don't have to think about it every day and send emails weekly asking questions that I don't get responses to. So moving on, does anybody have any additional questions about your revenue? Moving into the general fund expenses, I'm sure you've had enough time to go through a lot of these expenses. We have a lot of basic departmental salary groupings, and all of these salary groupings, again, are based on a 3% increase come 2021. I do need to make a correction, and I'm going to request that because I need to reduce our carryover and by $6,671.86. I failed to include Mr. Penke's actual salary for some reason, and in the projection forward. So can you all do that for me, please? So I'm kind of particular about my carryover numbers.
I'll make that motion that you make that correction in the amount in the budget notes.
For 6671.86.
Yes,
Is there a
please.
second? Seconded by Magistrate Short. Any discussion on the motion or the request? There being none, let's have a voice vote by name. I'll go around the room. Jamie Gay,
Yes.
Ronnie Short,
Yes.
Jason Cullen.
Yes.
Thank you. Magistrate Kaywood,
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis,
Yes.
Magistrate Simmons.
Yes.
All right, and that motion passes, Mary. Thank you.
All right, so the first department you have is the county judge's department that basically includes the salaries for those employees and office supplies. Next comes the county attorney. If you want to turn your spreadsheet pages, there's the county attorney. We account for salaries for the county attorney, and we pay one office staff person and the assistant county attorney and benefits with no office supply line item. We do pay for the county clerk's tax bills, and that's at the bottom of your notes. So what we've done here is we've eliminated all of the benefit expenditures for the county clerk, except for, again, the tax bill preparation, her audit services, and her liability insurance for the department. So we have agreed to keep those in our budget, but understand that she's going to take those over, and what will happen is that there will be a reduction in the turning over of excess fees. So any questions about any of that? The next department, you can turn your page because we've already gone over. The sheriff's department is the coroner, and that's in the middle of the page of the 5020 numbers. And so that includes one county coroner, and it includes a deputy coroner, and that's the only two. We do have a small amount for equipment repair and maintenance. We do pay for autopsy transportation. There are operating supplies, and that is primarily, I hate to say this, body bags. There is a small amount of office supplies, which includes toner and his liability insurance, training for both of them, and $710 of capital equipment was spent this year on a new computer and scanner. So next year, we've been notified by a third party that the coroner's office uses a certain type of software to upload information, I believe, to the state. Mike can correct me if I'm wrong there, but that software license, that software was developed with the help of Boyle County, and they have not charged Boyle County for an annual licensing fee. That may be sunsetting soon, and it's about $300 a year. So a little information to fill your day. So the next department we have is your magistrate's department and the fiscal court clerk's salary. And that includes any benefits that go along with them. We have a PVA statutory, oh no, I need to talk about one other item that's new this year, and it's the 5025191 account. It's a new budgeted item this year, and it is your reapportionment committee, and it is in your budget every 10 years. Yes, I did remember to put that in your budget. But this committee gets together and they will review the census and work with the Bluegrass ad on district and polling lines if required. Do you have any questions about the reapportionment committee? All right. Next, at the very bottom of your long spreadsheet is the PVA statutory contribution. It's set by KRS 132.590 subsection 9, and it's based on our estimated real and personal property assessments. And if they exceed $2.5 billion threshold, then we are required by statute to pay an appropriation of $75,000. But in addition to that, pay for their telephone, their inspection ad, and their fall conferences. And then on top of that, the county is required to provide space for them to operate and pay for that. There's your PVA if you want to turn your spreadsheet over to the next page. We have the Board of Assessment and Appeals, and they're getting ready to meet because, again, the PVA, when they do their assessments and those assessments goes out, they have to have a comment period with a board, and they meet for 2 or 3 days, whatever's required. And the fiscal court appoints that board as well as the reapportionment committee. So I don't know if that's something we need to think about, Judge, is getting that reapportionment committee names from the last year and see who's going to serve on that for this year.
We have historical records on its composition.
I would think so, in a census file, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, next is the treasurer's department that includes the treasurer as well as the payroll officer and our office supply line item. Let's see, and then we have the tax administrator's department, and I went to great lengths to start breaking this down so we could see exactly what we were spending in that line item as it relates to the amount of money that we were receiving as commission from the city of Danville. But it seems as if after this year, that's no longer necessary, and we can probably roll that back into your general categories. But this includes a tax administrator, an assistant tax administrator, and then the tax administrator who is the assistant treasurer, who was doing some economic development analyses for EDP and activity of businesses coming and going. In addition to that, there's the benefits associated with those, as well as office supplies, dues and conferences, the bond that the tax administrator is required to keep, and any telephone expenses. And basically the only increase in that is office supplies. I increased that from 2,700 to 3,200. A lot of that is what's driving that is included in that are their annual statements and postage. You gotta love postage. They do some extraneous mailings throughout the year as well, for reminders, for delinquencies, et cetera, that has come from a real good delinquency policy that they have implemented, and with that comes paper and additional ink. So thank you for them for doing that. Moving on and skipping the next department, we also have what we call a law library department, and that's a oh wait, I need to correct the unemployment line item for, if you look at the tax administrator's unemployment insurance, the treasurer had a little typo there. I found that as I was going through and making notes. I'd like to correct the $2 for unemployment insurance to $200. If you all would appease me and approve increasing that to $200, I'd appreciate it.
I'll make that motion.
There a second to that correction? Motion?
Second.
Seconded by Magistrate Short. Discussion? All those in favor, we'll go around the room with your vote. Jamie Gay,
Yes.
Magistrate Short,
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen. Thumbs up. Yes. Magistrate Kaywood,
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis,
Yes.
Magistrate Sammons.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimous. Thank you. Make that correction from $2 to
Thank you, guys.
$200.
And with the 5047 accounts, I don't know if you noticed in your budget notes, but I did tell you that the 2021 budget totals $195,030, and we were collecting, I believe last year's projected occupational tax collection, let's see, I think was around 165,000 in commissions. I can't find it right off. Oh yeah, $162,000 is what we were getting in commissions. So that $195,000 is going to be freestanding moving forward after this December. Law librarian at the bottom of the page is a statutorily required position. I think that should be lobbied to disappear, but the Jefferson County Circuit Clerk does not agree with me. So it stands in the law because there's no library anymore. Then we have the election accounts, and this is a consideration. These accounts are a consideration. Again, I budgeted at 100% because the election accounts include, in this budget cycle, the general election, which is the president and the vice president, U.S. House and Senate, State House and Senate, school boards, city officers, and the Supreme Court of District 7. and there's no election scheduled for 2021. So in essence, if the fiscal court would like, we can cut all of these budget figures in half, except for the commissioners in 193, 201, 208, and 209. And then we have to omit the 725 account, but we could, seemingly reduce all of these accounts for a total of $49,565 and reduce the 15,000 to 7,500 as an offsetting revenue. Or I can leave them the same. The net effect is the net effect. So you all can, and I apologize, I didn't pull that sheet of paper when I was actually creating the budget, and should have. I'm sure it was because I just didn't have time to dig through all of that paperwork that I have laying around. So I'll let the fiscal court make this decision.
I'll make a motion that we half those based on the fact that we only have one election cycle in this budget year.
Okay. Second to the motion,
Haywood, second.
seconded by Magistrate Kaywood. Any discussion? All right, we'll go around the room with a voice vote. Magistrate Gay,
Yes.
Magistrate Short,
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen.
Yes.
Thank you. Magistrate Kaywood,
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis,
Yes.
and Magistrate Sammons.
Yes.
Thank
you. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Judge. And one item of note, the account for 725, I left 3750 in there. That's for potential, since one of the things that the county clerk asked for was the consideration of purchasing all new voting machines for $234,700. One of the things I asked about is if we purchase new voting machines, there is a line item for election tabulator, which is item number 194, which runs around $50,000. I asked if we purchased all these new voting machines, would that reduce the tabulator's work? And she emailed them and they said, no, it would not reduce their work. So the tabulation line item would remain the same. But in having this conversation, the finance committee felt like since we were delaying projects and capital expenditures in other departments, that we would delay the consideration of purchasing all new voting machines in the amount of $234,700. So, but I did leave in the $3,750 for any repairs, or if we have to, buy a little circular polling station where you do your writing, we have money available to be able to replace those that are broken. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what you just said about the finance committee. We did talk about this quite a bit, and we're recommending postponing this until a future date. So eliminating that from this upcoming budget.
Okay.
All righty.
I did my own dissertation on page 5 of the notes and at the top there, and you can ignore that, but I'm not a big fan of unfunded mandates, as you can see. Let's move on to economic development. The amount, we're going to be addressing those at the next meeting. There are those industrial those ED industrial incentives, and those we currently have, as you can see, Pittman Creek, Megat, and TransNav that we're working on, and we have a relationship and are dispersing monies, tax monies back to them. One of the things I did put in the budget, and it's a consideration for the 2021 budget, is the Finance Committee took out the amount of $30,000 out of the initial draft since you did vote to reduce the election by $49,000, would like you to consider maybe putting in $30,000 into asset development for the Boyle County Fiscal Court, in case, you know, we have the opportunity to, you know, a business come in and there's something that they would like, you know, a pad or something, and we can work with the city. So we have at least some funds earmarked for asset development. Conversation?
I'll make that motion.
You want to add that back in?
Yes, the $30,000 in for asset development.
And is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Is that Patrick Cullen? I wasn't looking. Who was it? Short? Okay.
Yeah.
Patrick Short. Is there discussion? This is kind of, lack of a better term, seed to discussions of on Thursday to follow on.
You know, one of the reasons that we did increase and we had conversations about is to take, you know, a portion of these funds and put toward economic development. And I can say from historical look backs, you know, we've always been involved in one form or another, especially if we're going to start looking outside of the specific industrial development area. If we start, you know, looking at growth around the airport, you know, we have to be prepared to recruit. And I just think it's important. I'm a big promoter of putting funds aside for you know, creating jobs and making sure that we're not put in a hard spot if in fact somebody comes to us and we have to have funds available at a moment's notice to be able to get somebody in here to create the revenue and the jobs that we need. And so I don't, since we did cut the budget with a half of an election, I think it would be prudent to redirect these funds into a savings account.
Mary, just for clarification, this is still, whatever the purpose would be, this is a budget item only. The purpose would still be voted on by the court. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it would be
Okay.
just, it
So
would
I
be,
just want,
yes, it would be the creation of a fund and it would be shared. You know, I've had conversations with the city and with the mayor and explained to them that it would be prudent for them to put the, you know, an equitable amount plus some in a savings account this year. I don't know if they've done that, but this doesn't have anything to do with the EDP's budget either. I do know that the EDP's proposed budget has a line item in it for asset development. Personally, I don't think that line item should be in EDP's budget. It should be in the city and the county's budget. Instead of turning funds over to EDP to put in their own asset development, we should be doing that. And so that would literally lower their budget by, it was either $30,000 or $40,000. I think it was $30,000 if memory serves me correctly. But we put those in our budget for future expansion and consideration. And those would be a case by case considerations when and if the opportunity presents itself.
this is not
Tom Ellis,
much different.
Mary. Tom Ellis here. This, I guess, in my mind, runs parallel to Magistrate Haywood, where we pulled out 30 last year for any special project or projects, except that this one would be under our control as an asset development line that we would vote on, just as we might have voted on new projects that came in with that earmarked 30,000 that we withheld last year. Is that correct?
No, I don't look at those as the same kind of monies at all. What that $30,000 with what you did last year was EDP asked for a certain amount of money and you allocated 70,000 with a contingency of 30,000 for him to come back and draw on. This would not be the same kind of money. This money would not have anything to do, it has to do with economic development in its entirety, for sure, but it would be based on the recruitment of a business coming in, and then the county having the opportunity and the savings along with the city hand in hand to create, if they needed a certain, I don't know, one of the things we've done in the past is road work, you know, things of that nature. So it would allow us to have the ability to create an infrastructure possibly in an area that's not developed and work with even the industrial foundation. I don't know, there's a lot of moving parts of this, but it would not be contingent on the EDP budget itself.
And I heard you say that it could even involve potential for airport expansion, that type thing.
That's the way I see it. I'm not talking
Thank
about
you.
expansion, I'm not talking about specifically expansion to the airport. I'm talking
I
about
understand.
growth of the airport and the space and the area around it.
Excellent.
Yeah, Mary, I understand. This conceivably could be like a savings account that rolls over to succeeding year. Maybe we add to it again, make it
Yes.
60 or make it whatever. And then it actually can grow.
Yes.
Yeah, and Mary, if I could expound on that a little bit, I
Please.
agree with your premise here, and the judge and I have had some conversations on this. And while I think this is, you know, we need to have a start, and this is kind of good seed money for things that could pop up and develop. And this probably isn't the year, you know, obviously it is not the budget year to really talk about this, but I think in the future, this is going to be a budget line that we're going to have to talk about being a significant budget line if we're going to grow our ability to do asset development. Because one of the things, having toured around the state, is that is a costly endeavor to do asset development, to acquire and develop property, you know, roads, sewer, water lines, etc., and would be done in partnership, of course, as you're indicating, with the city.
Yes.
But this is a good starting point under our current budget constraints.
Well, let's not,
Go ahead.
let's not forget our other cities, please. No, we've got Junction as well. So let's not forget about Junction. It's not just Danville. Junction's sitting kind of okay right now. And so if possible, let's think parallel to it. Let's not just say Danville, because Boyle County is more than just Danville. Speaking of Danville, Mary, I wanted to jump back to the economic incentives. You said those that are taking advantage of it, and I don't know if this is relevant in any way. Pittman Creek, that's my understanding that Pittman Creek was just annexed in by the city. So how do those work when it comes to incentives by the county when now they're more of they're part of the city?
Well, with Pittman Creek, Magistrate Cullen, the city, I've been sending Pittman Creek's information to the city, so we rebate our portion and the city of Danville rebates their portion because they passed an ordinance as well. And so because those occupational taxes are already turned over to each entity, we each rebate our own money.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Okay. Well, is there no further discussion on the motion? I'm sure everybody remembers what it was at this point. So we'll go around the room. Magistrate Gay, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Short, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Kaywood, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Sammons, your vote.
Yes.
Judge Hunt votes yes. It stands, the motion is approved, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let's move on to now the courthouse. You can see all those 5080 accounts. The first item on the list is courthouse repair and maintenance building. And you can see there, you can read what we've done in 1920, this fiscal year is the exterior paint. But next year's budget, and you can see the estimates there that I wish Dwayne was on the, oh, there he is. Hi, Dwayne. Our 2021 budget includes, and this is where I guess we're going to play the prioritizing game, but you can see that our 2021, we have a base amount, but then we have certain estimates for second floor storm windows, first floor public restroom renovations, exterior brick tuck pointing, and then and Dwayne's heard me say this, I don't like that roof leak repair line item, but it's there. So that's what's in your budget currently. We leave it there.
Well, sitting in Rick's room right now on the second floor and looking at these walls crumbling, I think we kind of need to do something with this building to keep it standing, so.
Leave it as is.
All right. We'll move
I guess,
forward.
real quick on the 2021 budget includes does that include the entryway or not?
Oh, that's the exterior of the courthouse. We'll get there. It's in there though.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's where I always get confused.
I know.
So thank you. And these are all in theory halved with the office of the courts, right?
In theory, yes.
Right.
So let's see, is there any, one of the things that I've had under the 5080338, the 1920 budget included a phone system. That phone system was deferred until next year. So we had about, I think, $8,500 or something like that in there. I'll have to look specifically. Oh, it's on page 7 of our notes. We'll get to that. But it was in that line item last year and we didn't spend it. So moving forward with, so that budget reverted back to the $2,500 that I had in years past. Financial hardware and software. This is another one that's increased substantially. And you can see that on the top of page 6, what it includes, but the 2021 budget year includes an additional item, and it's $22,000 for a payroll timekeeping system. And the Finance Committee felt very strongly that needed to, that initial, and this is not something that this is a timekeeping system that will integrate with the payroll system. So employees will actually be punching a time clock, and every department head is in favor of implementing such a timekeeping system. And we feel like it will save money long term, and the renewal for this timekeeping system at the high end is $2,000 a year. So I would like to ask that the fiscal court keep this in the budget, but again, that's up to the fiscal court.
Personnel signed off on this too.
Personnel, thank you.
What's the timekeeping software?
We have quotes from 3 different companies. We have not selected that. That will be a fiscal court exercise.
So is the Magister Kaywood, does the committee recommend keeping this in the budget then? This expenditure?
I'm just a member of the committee, sir. But I remember the discussion we had, and as I remember, I don't think there was an official vote, but I believe there was a shaking of the heads in an affirmative manner by everybody.
Okay.
Yes, and the finance
I
committee
believe
also recommended keeping it in.
Judge, you and Mary were there. Is that what you all remember also?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
And Rod was there also. Rod, is that what
Yeah.
you remember?
Yeah, the personnel committee recommended to do this.
So, I don't know if we need a motion for clarity's sake, but, we need to keep it in there, that's for sure.
Okay. The other thing I put in there is a reserve account for the financial server. We have, it's been warranted, agreed to be warranted again for another whole year. So since I think it's Microsoft will warranty it, then we're gonna warranty it another year. Just like it's on the same order as the jailer's server. I think ours is a little older than theirs, but I know theirs runs more. But since Microsoft will warranty it again, we're going to keep it under warranty and move forward with that in a reserve account. In addition to that, we have the 421 account. Oh, real quick, I'm going to mention at the 365, which is your security and fire, there's an additional $5,200 in there this year, as well as I kept it in here next year because Simplex actually came in at one time and told us that our fire panel had to be replaced. But, you know, they do, you know, reviews and to make sure that we're within fire code. And they've never come back and said we needed to upgrade it. So I'm just waiting for them to come back and do that again. But I'd like to keep that $5,200 that they quoted us for a fire plant panel still in the budget. And that's why that's $7,200 as opposed to the $2,500 in 2019. Another item is the 421 account, and that's your lawn. The beautification committee charges us $300 for that flower bed out at the entrance. They didn't like the way I was planting flowers, obviously. So then there's the courthouse brick entrance. And then I'd like to also include the other entrances, maintenance on some of the brickwork that needs to be repaired. And then there's also the courthouse parking lot. Dwayne, I believe that's the full parking lot that you gave me at $14,000 behind the courthouse.
Yes, it's from the entrance up to that other speed bump,
Right.
which is the parking lot right behind the courthouse there.
Yeah. So we're going to be patching that for the water repair, the water leak repair. But then this is the full paving of that lot.
That's correct. Now, did that also include the little lot next door too?
Well, I didn't know. I did patching of that little lot because that little lot is in good shape,
Yeah,
except for a little dip that's in it.
Right. Yes. That's
And
correct.
I think people complain they get out of their car into a big puddle of water when it rains.
That's why we need to work that one side. Yes.
And that's $14,000. And then included in that are Christmas decorations. So these are our external. Is there anything there that we need to remove, add? Hearing nothing, I'm going to move ahead to the plumbing line item. It just kind of explains why our plumbing costs were elevated in 1920, and that's because of our wonderful water leak that cost us about $12,942. But that doesn't include the additional $4,700 in pavement that had to be done in addition to that amount. So new furniture and fixtures, we're down to the, because there's not really a whole lot of change in your utility line items. So if you go to the next page of your big long spreadsheet, we're down to the new office equipment and new furniture and fixtures. There's nothing really in furniture and fixtures. That's just routine. What I do need to fix though is I need to add the $7,000 in a projection for COVID-19 streaming equipment, which reduces the 2021 carryover because we need to get that in place.
Yeah, we need a motion to put that into the budget for the COVID, the 7,000 for the COVID carryover.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Second it.
All right, thank you. Baxter Short seconded, motion made by Baxter Gay. Discussion on that the $7,000 projected for the COVID streaming equipment into the budget? No discussion. We'll go around the room. Magistrate Gay, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Short, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen, your vote.
Yes.
All right. Magistrate Kaywood, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis, your vote.
Yes.
Magistrate Salmons, your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
So then there's 12,250 in next year's new office equipment, and we're gonna slowly do some upgrades. The county judge needs a computer. I need to say this again. The county judge needs a computer, one that operates well. I think his is the same age as mine, and the county treasurer needs a computer and a docking station because I have to replace. I think both of them. Excuse me?
Are you sure it's the computer that's the problem?
Hey, he's being funny there. Of course, we're sure.
No, I wouldn't put my money on anything, Magistrate Cullen. But when I turn on my computer, the judge has his own set of problems, but when I turn on my computer, it will not connect to all of my network drives every time. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I make it into the next fiscal year, because it's probably, I don't know, and Bill may know, but I think it's about 10 years old. I've replaced the hard drive and upgraded the memory over the course. It's crashed once and we've revived it. And it cost me $250 to revive it. And now I can't fix it. And there's nothing more I can do to this to fix it again, and neither can Bill. So I'm gonna have to break down and buy a computer as well. So the other computer, we have 4 additional computers. We have the county finance officer computer. We have the 5 computers, it looks like. The government services center administrative assistant computer, the tax administrator's computer, the tax administrative assistant's computer, and then the assistant treasurer computer and the EMA computer. All of these were purchased at a variety of different times within 2 or 3 years of one another. But we need to start replacing them before they all kind of die. And so what I have in the budget, the conservative person is for 2, $1,200 for the finance officer computer, because that's the first one we're going to replace, and a $1,200 reserve for those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 computers. It's actually 5 because I added the EMA director's computer on top of that. So
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion and we go ahead right away and buy the computer for you and one for the judge's office. There's no use waiting until it crashes and then we'd be in trouble. I'll make that motion. We'll go ahead and do it.
I'll second by Ellis.
All right. Appreciate that, gentlemen. Motion made by Salmon, seconded by Magistrate Ellis. Discussion? All those, we'll go around the room. Magistrate Gay.
Yes.
Magistrate Short.
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen.
I'm gonna be a yes, but I have a question. Mary, does a new computer come with Lotus? Because
yeah, I mean,
that's why
I have resurrected that piece of software for years, and it will, I promise you, you'll be, but one of the things I need to tell you is I'm not going to change the budget, and I appreciate you all going ahead and approving that. But what this does is it issues a purchase order that creates an encumbrance, but will probably not be paid for until after July 1. So thank you for that. We will move forward with that. We will encumber that, but we will probably not pay for it until next fiscal year, if that's okay.
Yep. And so we'll go next to Magistrate K. Wood.
Yes.
All right. Magistrate Ellis.
Yes.
And Magistrate Salmons.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. IT director, are you listening? I think that's a directive for the IT director. Go ahead
How?
and get pricing for computers for the judge and the county treasurer.
I can do that, and I also have located and can install the Lotus Suite on your new computer as well.
Does that make you feel better, Magistrate Cullen?
Was that on a floppy disk that you got that?
It might be.
We can't. We shouldn't really discuss where I got that. Let's just say that I got it and it's covered and it's good. So just it's a very old program. So the royalty rights and stuff are pretty much gone on it at this point.
And it comes with an 8-inch floppy. 8-inch. Do you remember those? No, you were probably a child. So moving on, we want to talk about what the finance committee did is they delayed the purchase of a courthouse phone system. They delayed the purchase of tablets for magistrates, even though I think we might have found a few of those available. And then we delayed the Office 365, which came with a price tag of approximately, I think it was $10,000, $10,700 a year for everybody to do this Office 365, which knits in with the telephone system possibly. So
What's the
any
tablet
questions
for
about any of that?
How many years have we nixed the new telephone system, Mary? Been a lot, as I remember.
No, well, no, 2.
And why tablets for the magistrates?
I beg what?
Tablets for the magistrates, why
Well,
is that?
setting them all up with hard, what do they call those? Those hard tablets, so that if you go to conferences, you can take your tablet and get your emails and answer those. In addition to that, if we do anything like a go-to meeting for those who are at home, Magistrate Salmons, Magistrate Kaywood, Magistrate Cullen, Magistrate Short, Magistrate Ellis, I would be remiss. And that way you all would have a tablet. Oh, and Magistrate Gay, you all would have tablets that you could have automatically set up, and it's used for county purposes only. And you'd have everything at your fingertips. Just a thought, but it's been delayed.
Yeah, good call.
We've been doing fine without spending that $6,600.
Agreed, Matt, Sam is agreed.
Okay. Moving into the next, let's see. There's nothing under county property. Building inspector we've gone through. That kind of resumes the courthouse stuff, the 5080 account. So I'm moving forward. We've done building inspector, EMA, turning the page on your long spreadsheet. We've done animal control, but right in the middle, there are 2 items that you need to know that we do fund. And the first one is a 5150 account for forest fire protection. Yes, we aid in the state's forest fire protection. And that is done by a census amount. And then we also pay for the public defender, and that's in that line item. So moving through, we have animal control, solid waste. I'm still turning pages of your long spreadsheet. Recycling. We've done soil conservation. One of the things that we do have, and it's in the parks. Well, I don't know what page I'm on. I'm on the 3rd page from the back where the Constitution Square was in soil conservation, right there in the middle. We have a small grouping of 5401 accounts. They are for White's Park bathrooms, shelter, and playground equipment. You see those, the 5401, we have the facility maintenance supplies set at 1,000. That's for the bathroom and the shelters. 521 is for the insurance. And then we have the property and equipment repair and maintenance at $2,000 and utilities at $2,000. I'm not really quite sure. And one of the things I think we need to talk about, and Engineer Campbell and I had this conversation, and we weren't quite sure what to do with it, but we purchased a year ago in 1819 a large playground piece of equipment, and that has not been assembled and put up. And the reason for that is, first and foremost, is that first the city bought the fairgrounds property soon after that, and there was conversations about White's Park. And so we deferred putting that up. We're not really quite sure where the White's Park conversation is, but we deferred putting that up, thinking that if that was taken over by the city of Danville, that we may relocate this playground equipment to another park or to another setting. To the fiscal court's liking. But we have a playground piece of equipment that we spent almost $20,000 for, that we need to erect.
Where is this equipment at and how big is it? Hello?
I don't know. Dwayne, do you know how big it is?
It's stored here. It's still in boxes. It's stored here at our facility. It was to replace, if you remember, the first playground unit below the building up there that had multiple slides, had a spiral slide on it. It was purchased to replace that unit. So it's a sizable unit.
So can we look to maybe see somewhere in Junction or Perryville to place this equipment? Does it have to go to White's Park?
The magistrate from Perryville area would be delighted to discuss that.
You got space for it, Tom, or what?
We will find it.
I have a
We also got space for it in Junction.
You've got all kinds of baseball fields and everything else.
I have a question for Dwayne.
Used to have one before by the county 100 years ago. Magistrate Sammons, I'm going to need your help on this, because early on last year, we were part of that parks negotiation, and I had thought that we had put any concept of divesting ourselves of White's Park to bed. I didn't think it was a discussion anymore. Help me, Magistrate Sammons.
Well, they said that we never did discussion. There was ended about the transfer to Danville over a piece of property that we were trying to negotiate for out on the bypass. And, the mayor said that it was a done deal as far as he's concerned. And I don't know, it seemed like we just let it slip. But maybe that's something we need to start working on. But as far as the mayor was concerned, we were going to trade that for about 4 or 5 acres out there on the bypass. Right, Dwayne?
Of course, that did not take place.
That did not take place.
No, sir.
So we still own the 3.2 acres of White's Park that is not reserved for the Veterans Memorial facility there.
Yeah.
Wall.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Dwayne. Dwayne,
Yes.
the equipment at White's Park, the playground equipment, is quite old, isn't it?
Yes, it's old. Over 20 years old.
Here's my point. My point is child's liability, family liability, if something happened. I once had a conversation with Mr. Bell months ago, and he talked about liability of old equipment, playground equipment. And I just throw that out there as I think this is a little piece of the puzzle. What would our liability be out there if we didn't replace it, and how liable and how dangerous is it? And I don't have that answer, but Mr. Bell would. And a discussion with him might be part of this solution.
We have a meeting tomorrow afternoon. Jason, you and I could bring that up.
Well, it's just, what is the liability? Should we go ahead and replace it because of it, or look for another location as we have discussed today?
I would
silly
ask
to replace anything at White's Park right now because, I mean, that is gonna be an integral part of the city trying to move forward with what they're trying to do. And why I would see it as a waste of us putting anything on that property right now. Now, if we're worried about liability, maybe we can take some stuff down because that park's really not used. But I could definitely see that equipment being better used in areas like Junction or Perryville where they don't have Millennium and they don't have 7 city parks or whatever that we're now going to contribute to. So I understand what Mr. Kaywood is saying, but let's put that stuff where it's going to be better used and appreciated, and you know, not 500 yards from other equipment that's right inside Millennium. That's nicer. So I mean, that's
and I can buy into that. I would just like to know, maybe we should just take it down if it's like a liability. I don't know. I know Mr. Bell and I had a good conversation on it. It made a lot of sense to me.
I had that conversation with John Bell some time ago, and virtually it was last summer, I think. But his concern was because of the metallic structure of the older system there at White's Park, there were some potential liabilities for edges being run into, and temperature would generate a potential burn hazard to young children on the equipment. Now, that's not new, but given the age of the equipment, I would be really fine with its total removal, and we find a new home other than White's Park for the replacement in boxes. That's my thought.
I'm fine with that, but that conversation came to mind as we were having this conversation, that we ought to have what we're talking about. So I'm glad we did.
Completely accurate. I mean, I agree that we really need to worry about that stuff. Although, let's be honest, most of that playground equipment would have been state of the art in all of y'all's day and age. So just throwing that out there.
It was all we could get to that day.
I slid down that hot slide all the time.
I know that was back in the days. That was back in the days when men were men and women were women. We were tough.
I'm not going there.
Let's move right along. We're wasting a lot of time.
Today they sue over things like that, so it's a different era, no doubt.
Lose, we can make a hot slide.
Something for everybody to think about. We need to make a decision.
No, but more importantly, let's get this equipment out of the boxes. Let's find somewhere to put it. It'll be a nice little thing to have, especially as we come out of COVID. There's so many playgrounds that are closed right now. It'd be nice to be able to say, okay, you know, Ronnie and Tom, get together with Dwayne and figure out where this is going to be best utilized, and let's do something with it.
Thank you.
I was going to suggest that Ronnie and Tom do rock, paper, scissors, 2 out of 3 to see who gets it.
That's arm wrestling.
Or an arm wrestling match or something we can sell tickets to or do whatever.
How about that one?
All right. And let's not forget, let's make a decision. Doesn't have to be today, but we need to make a decision soon about some of the old equipment, whether we want to go ahead and take it down or not.
Right.
I would recommend, as others have suggested, that we get with John Bell, but I think he'll recommend it come on down, and I would agree with that.
That might be a good thing for the committee to discuss with him, and then come back and we can discuss it further.
Make a recommendation.
We meet tomorrow at 4:15 by phone, and I'll bring that up.
Thank you, Tom.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, moving on.
Well, that solves that. That's a good thing. One of the things that Magistrate Cullen mentioned at the last meeting, and as I was preparing the notes, I wanted to address the recreation appropriation. And I did go back to the participation in agreement that states, in the event that the Bunny Davis pool ceases operation, the county's annual payment shall be reduced by $19,000. So that recreation contribution is set at $322 come July 1, 2020. The reduction of that would be $303,000. What's the pleasure of the fiscal court? Because the pool's not opening this year, and they stated, I think in their letter, it was due to construction or repair and improvements.
I'll make that motion that we reduce that amount. And I guess if we talk about this on Thursday more, I'd like to make some other recommendations, but we can start with that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made by Magic Gaten, seconded by Magic, I believe it was Cullen. Short, who did that? Cullen, okay, good. Any discussion on that, motion to, of reduction on the pool at Bunny Davis Center? There being none, we'll go around the room. Magic Gay,
Yes.
Magic Short,
Yes.
Magic Cullen,
Yes.
Magic Kaywood,
Yes.
Magic Ellis,
Yes.
Magic Sammons,
Yes.
Judge Hunt, yes. Thank you. Appreciate the unanimous vote. Support that. There you go.
All right, so we'll be discussing appropriations. One of the reasons why our appropriations is potentially going to go over budget this year is because there was an unbudgeted expenditure for the Larnell Harris signage in the amount of $916. One of the things I did list for you for your 7,600 lines, I've moved on to the next page of your spreadsheet, just for your information. The
On last
appropriation.
Page 8.
And I did have a conversation with the city of Danville and told them that our fireworks appropriation is $5,000. And that's all we're going to be spending. So to keep their fireworks, I guess, show, if they want to split it 50-50, to keep it at a $10,000 limit, because we are only providing $5,000. We're not going to go over budget this year to accommodate that show.
Mary?
Yes, sir.
Under the 507, the appropriations, Brass Band Festival. Been pushed to July, I understand.
That has been, they were issued their $10,000. They requested it and were issued their $10,000 in March, I believe it was, or maybe even February. I don't have the exact date, but they did push it out as a one-day event in July. And so they're going to use that $10,000 toward that event. But they have made another appropriation request for next fiscal year. So which would be around June of 2021.
Okay, so we'll talk about that on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
but they're having a one-day festival as opposed to 3, and they're still taking the full 10,000.
That's what they asked for, and that's what you all appropriated.
Right, yeah. You appropriated for that for a 3-day festival, not a 1-day.
Yeah. But they
Okay.
didn't come back and talk to the fiscal court about that. And at that time, when we appropriated, when we gave that money, they were in a position of having, because it was orated to me that they were going to either do this, this, or this. You know, they said 3-day, and this was after we appropriated the money, actually. It was going to be a 3-day, and then it went, or 1 day, or they weren't going to have it at all. And so they were very upfront with me. And since they had not made a final decision, and they did that after they requested and received that money so we can always look at next year, what their finances are, and maybe adjust next year's appropriation accordingly.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah. Okay.
Mary, going back to the fireworks, are we gonna be able to do that this year?
The city of Danville, the county is not the one that actually puts the fireworks on. We did back in the Stone Ages. We were a partner with the city of Danville. Actually, it was Tony Wilder's idea to start the fireworks back up years ago. And so we were a very active partner. And as we've gone through the motions, the city of Danville has pretty much taken over that activity in its entirety. I asked if they were going to do that. They got back with me and they said that they were going to do that, not at the beginning of July, on July 4th, but possibly in conjunction with or around the same time as the Brass Band Festival was going to be done. So it'll all kind of work together, I guess.
Roll out my objection again to where they have it. It really needs to be away from the animal shelter. So I know we don't probably have much of a say in this, but we really need to make a push. General, if you can, keep it away from the animal shelter.
Mr. Cullen, you're reading my mind. I just wrote it down for tomorrow afternoon's meeting.
Thursday.
I think that's an expenditure we ought to stop. If the animal wants to have a fireworks, let them have what they want. I don't think we should.
Yeah, but you got everybody in the county that goes and sees them.
Let them go to Lincoln.
Most Lincoln comes over here.
Yeah, I know it.
I've got a feeling that this expenditure on the city's behalf is probably doesn't have real long legs in the future. I think it's probably coming to the end because of the participants that have been involved are nearing retirement. And so it may fall off their plate as well as ours in the not too distant future. Just an observation. But in regard to the animals at the shelter, that is a good observation. But just so you know, our population at the shelter is dramatically reduced to what it has been in the past. So it's not as big as a nuisance concern.
Well, we should have a plan A and a plan B if we are overrun for something. One of the sad things that as soon as we get back to work and start reopening things, there was a lot of animals that were adopted. People are at home, people are bored, and I have concerns that we might see an overrun of animals come back to the shelter because everyone's going back to work and they just don't have time to take care of these animals now. So we need to have a contingency plan if that's an option.
Well, we'll take a look at that. Yeah.
I mean, my puppy's staying. She's pretty awesome, but there's
So I'm going to leave the $5,000 in the budget and you can make those decisions as we move forward. We'll keep you in the loop about what's going on.
Moving right along.
All right, so we have our debt service payments. You can see that the interest rate it goes from 2 to 3% and it's due to end on 12/1/2029. And you can see your payments there are listed under your 7,600 lines. And then we have your general services, which are 9,100. And most of those are statutorily required, like the legal fees, our court-appointed attorneys. We have to pay for disability evaluations for the court system. We do have contracted services. And this kind of answers some questions, I think, for some of you magistrates. The 399 account, we had talked about the Kroger settlement. In 1718, actual includes a Kroger tax settlement, legal fees of $10,099. And the 1819 projection includes a Kroger tax settlement legal fee of $6,402. And then the 1920 projection also includes the Kroger tax settlement legal fees of $5,017.50. So there's been a substantial amount of money spent out of the taxpayer's pocket to pay for legal fees for a Kroger tax settlement. And I guess we're still going forward, but any questions? I guess not any questions about that because I can't answer any questions about that. So I think our county attorney said he would take those over now that he's in a position to be able to handle those. And then we don't pay for those services. So that's what's in your contracted services. Your ethics committee basically is their insurance premium. And then we have the courthouse insurance, the volunteer insurance for community service. Legal notice are basically ordinance advertisements and classifieds for a variety of different things. We have dues payments, and then we have additional dues and conferences and meals and our supervisory training programs, which our supervisory training programs has $1,200 in the budget. That will be reduced simply because Shannon, the payroll officer, has found Keiko as a resource instead of paying for Cantella to do managerial training. So hopefully that expense will go away in its entirety. And there's a public education line item that we don't use much anymore, and a miscellaneous line item. Any questions about that?
Yes, Mary, have we reached out to see the pricing of advertising through the Herald Leader and added that into the budget at all with the Advocate moving to just printing 2 days a week?
I have not, and one of the things that whenever I did our LGEA hearing, and I'm going to advertise the budget, is I have been told by the newspaper and outerlying areas that counties are using those because there are not, I think there's only left in the state, what did they say, maybe 15 newspapers that are daily circulations, and most counties now are just using their 2-day-a-week circulating newspapers because that's basically what covers their area. And so I'm gonna follow. I did my advertising in the Advocate Messenger, and I advertised our audit report in the Advocate Messenger 2 weeks ago. I am going to continue unless somebody tells me differently. I'm not inclined to give the Herald Leader a bunch of money unless I'm absolutely forced to do so.
I understand.
Mary, Tom Ellis here. I've looked into those regs a little bit. They're under draft form right now, but it appears that they give us all the latitude and the leniency to go with our local paper. And most of the other courthouses for years have only been using, if they're remote like we are, they're only using their weekly newspaper. So we would be ahead of the game with 2 times a week. I think we're going to be clear on that to avoid the big, heavy cost of the Herald Leader or the Courier Journal.
I agree. I'm comfortable with where we are right now.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I know that in the surrounding Louisville area, the Courier Journal's kind of forced themselves on some of these smaller counties because the smaller newspapers just don't fit what the KRS says. So
yeah, and unfortunately times are changing. So I think when times change, the legislature has to change and accommodate those of us who are not willing to spend that kind of money with these larger newspapers because they don't reach our local circulation.
Right. Well, I'll reach out.
We get Chris Herron to check that with Rich Ornstein.
Yeah, I'll look into it further.
Well, we need to speak with Daniel and Rick as well and make sure that this gets brought up and get some movement. So.
And that's what we need, is to have the legislature address it and clarify it for us.
Right.
Now, I may not remember this correctly, but on this very issue, I believe that somebody somewhere has told me that the state passed this last General Assembly, the consideration that on notifications that an official website could be used in lieu of.
No, that was proposed, Judge, and there was a lot of push toward it, but as far as the primary advertising mechanism, it still includes the newspaper of your local your daily newspaper of local circulation, and that's the exact words that they use. Daily is where the sticking point is, and local circulation we can argue, but you know, they tell us that we can advertise as a supplement, but you know, I still have to put it in the newspaper. I still have to put it in the newspaper.
I just wonder where Robertson County or Elliott County's newspapers are. Not even daily, not even weekly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are we near the end? Because we're bearing down on 4 hours.
Yep, and like I said, that takes care of my notes. What I was going to say is I am going to be going to therapy again at 2 o'clock. I will, before 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, have a revised and final budget in your box and emailed to you. And you can go through it. It'll be balanced, and it'll have all of the changes in it that we've talked about over a period of time. Please take the opportunity to review it very closely in the next 24 hours after you've gotten it. And make sure that you don't have any questions, that you agree with everything, and that you're comfortable where we end up. I'm feeling a little better about things. I think we've done some good cuts to accommodate the loss of revenue, because everything that I'm reading, again, all of these strategic bulletins that I'm getting talks about a short-term reduction, but a social 2-year graduation out of this. It's not going to be a 4 or 5 year like in 2008. So I'm comfortable and hopeful, not only for us, but for our community, that they can start seeing our services resume to the full expectation.
That sounds good. Is that all you have for us today, Mary?
Yes,
Thank
sir,
you.
thank
I want to thank everybody, but make this announcement before we conclude that on our next scheduled court session, which is Thursday of this week at 9 a.m., we will, at the request of Magistrate, our distinguished Magistrate Kaywood, we will all collectively meet in person in the district court, which has been set up for social distancing, and any interviews that we have external to the fiscal court and Mary and the county attorney and Bill, it will be by go to meeting from outside, like Steve Knight, whoever else is going to be addressing this on Thursday. But it will also be recorded. Okay. So
I guess John just wants to see our faces, doesn't he?
I think that's probably as much as anything, Matt.
Probably everybody but yours, Phil.
I'll stay home or phone in, Judge.
Okay.
Judge, I failed to, and I apologize profusely. Even though I sit across from it daily and listen to it clunk, clunk, clunk.
Oh yeah, the copier.
Do we need to put that in the budget?
This copier is atrocious.
May I put it in the budget?
I'll make the motion. We add the copier into the, would that be the equipment supply for the courthouse budget?
Yeah, courthouse equipment.
It's
I
way
move
over there.
we add that to the line item for the equipment supplies for the budget.
And for those who didn't see Mary's note that she put on the screen, the request to add $8,000 to the budget for a courthouse copier is much needed. I can tell you that, because I don't know what varmint's in that thing, but he's wearing my ears off.
I'll second it.
All right, Executive Magistrate Short. Is there any discussion on that motion? Go around the room. Magistrate Gay,
Yes.
Magistrate Short,
Yes.
Magistrate Cullen,
Yes, and I'm assuming we're gonna talk to DOE.
we will, yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Magistrate Kaywood,
Yes.
Magistrate Ellis,
Yes.
Magistrate Salmons,
Yes, and Thursday, I assume we'll be wearing masks. I guess we need to.
that is your personal choice. Yes, sir, that would be that's your personal choice. There will be social distancing observed in the room when you come in.
You said that's a district court, Judge?
District court on the 3rd floor.
Got it.
Okay? 9 o'clock. Is there any other questions?
Tell my friend Cullen that he better be on time.
Judge, may I remind everybody, Chairman Cullen, I believe we have a sheriff's committee meeting at 8. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct. Yep.
Judge, do you need a motion on adjourning, honoring our EMS men and women for their life-saving contribution to the community?
It'd be great if you'd make such a motion, Magistrate Ellis.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay,
All right, seconded. We'll do a voice vote in adjournment and recognition of our professional, distinguished emergency technician servicemen and women in the county. All those in favor of adjournment with that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. There being no other business for the court, we will stand adjourned.
See you all Thursday.